Always live on the Odyssey app is KFXX KWJJ HD2 Portland 1080 The Fan, an Odyssey station.
Howard looks right, throws right all the way, going for the home run ball, and it is almost, was it picked? It was intercepted. Nico Reed with a tremendous pick inside the 20-yard line.
This is Dirt and Sprague.
Final snap of the game, and Tess Johnson does the backflip, and Oregon is going to defeat Penn State and win the Big Ten championship for 2024. Oh, what a feeling.
With Andy Dirt Johnson and Brendan Sprague.
These players put it on the line every single day. They work their asses off. They're so proud to be Oregon Ducks. They're so proud to represent every one of you. The fans, the players, our administration, we got it from top to bottom. It's unbelievable. We got great people here. And tonight they went and won the damn Big Ten.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, 6:02 in the Rose City. Time for Dirt and Sprague on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan. Good morning. Happy Monday.
What is happening?
Nice little sports weekend that we just had.
A little overwhelming of sports weekend. A lot of sports going on.
Still drunk with joy over there, Dirt?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit of drunk with joy, man.
There was
battling a bad cold, too, on top of it.
So there was too much.
It was way too much.
Like, I was getting notifications like, oh, that's going on right now? Like, I was late to the Duck-UCLA basketball game.
Yeah, that was happening last night. The Blazers played 2 games for anybody that cares. I don't know how many people still exist in this market, but they
were
had a couple of
involved in
games.
2 games.
That's true.
Played is a strong word.
There was a final score with their name on it, technically twice over the last 3 days. Things are going well.
We had baseball news yesterday.
We did.
That's the one that I wasn't prepared for.
I wasn't either.
Whoa, that's a lot of money, man.
I don't think Yankee fans were prepared for that either.
God, I kind of enjoyed it. Does that make me sick? I kind of enjoyed that news.
Well, I hate the Mets. Probably
That's
as
true.
much as I hate the Yankees being a Braves fan.
It would have been like for me if he signed with the Dodgers. Totally fair. I get that.
But to be honest, I do hate the Yankees so much that there was a bit of like, yes.
They stole him from you.
Yes.
You're not the rich team in your own city anymore. Isn't that wild?
I don't know how do you get to 700 and you say, man, 65 more?
Too much.
We're out.
Can't handle that. Too much.
What was the point of going all the way to 7?
The guy's got an opt-out after the 5th year, too, so he can get out of the deal if he wants. It might only be a 5-year contract.
He's not getting out of that deal.
I mean, he might. I don't know where the market's going to be in 5 years. I think we forget how young Juan Soto is.
He's 26 years old.
So he will be. Aaron Judge just signed what at 31? How much did he just get 2 years ago?
Wasn't it 400?
Let me see what his was.
Or was it 3?
But if he stays in, there's a kicker clause, an escalator clause.
Up by $5 million or something a year.
Then it could total $800 million.
So he just signed for $360 million.
Wow.
For whatever it is, 10 years or whatever his contract's worth.
Yeah.
So you'd have to do the math. I don't know how much he could get, but he might feel like he could get more than that.
Do you really need
5 years.
to do math at that point?
No. He's going to be a billionaire. Let's just call it what it is.
Somebody broke it down that he's going to make, I think, $5,000 a minute for the next 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't even know how to react to signing a $765 million contract to anything.
I'd almost want to ask for the paycheck to be paid by minute. Just like check back every 5 minutes you check back. You're like, hey,
deposit
there's another 20 every
minutes.
5 minutes. You're like, hey, there's another 20 grand. Cool. Oh, look at that, another 20 grand. Oh, another 20 grand.
I have a very paranoid friend. One of my better friends. We got into a big debate at a dinner with a group of us about a few months ago. And he talked about how if he won the lottery, he would never admit or come out publicly with his name. And the reason he says is he doesn't want to be like a ransom kidnapping situation.
Which
and I said,
you can't do if you win the lottery because the state laws require they get to use your name for a year.
well, I'm like, but that doesn't happen. You're talking about like a movie.
Yeah, what is it, the 1930s?
And he goes, it happens. And I go, find it. He goes, what? I go, find the ransom, find the kidnapping, find the murder. You go find it for me. Because he's like, I'd move from America and I'd be anonymous. And we just all made fun. It's the dumbest take I've ever heard in my life.
That's a pretty bad take.
In this sense, not only is your name attached to this contract now, so you could already say for the conspiracy theorists that you're a target, I actually would up it. I wouldn't want to check by the minute. I want at my press conference, I want the golf check.
You want the big one?
I want
the Happy
big,
Gilmore
yes,
check?
Yes.
I want the big check, and we're all smiling.
$765 million check right there.
That's what I want.
This is going to be in my bank
Cohen's
account.
I'm going to frame it.
The owner's probably the one that would like to do that.
Oh, it'd be great for him.
See what we're doing.
Yeah,
Oh,
suck
man.
it, Yankees. Look at us. We just stole one of your best players.
I saw a really funny tweet from one of our good friends, Bart Winkler, and he said something like, "Oh man, it's too bad I wasn't born next to a major metro area where my baseball team can just buy everybody they want."
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't
It'd
it?
be very nice.
Hey, we got Willie Adames this weekend. You scared over there, Swigard?
the
Look out.
Dodgers signed Trinan and
Get
Conforto.
out of here. You can
Conforto
have
and Snell.
Conforto. Conforto's a bomb. That was a waste of money over the last 3 years. Just flush that down the toilet.
1 year, $17 million.
Now watch. He's going to hit 35 bombs this year because he's hitting behind Betts and Ohtani. And look at baseball stealing headlines right out of the gate on a big
batting
Monday.
7th in the lineup.
Yes.
Just
Only
fill in
hitting
whenever.
against right-handed pitchers.
Exactly.
That's all he's going to face. That's all we need you for, Conforto.
Ohtani's out tonight. Who are we going with? We got Conforto. He's batting .330. He's
Yeah, no
got
big
7
deal.
dingers.
He's also an all-star this year, but
Snell was the most significant thing they've done in the offseason by far.
I mean, you guys are still loaded. We don't need to talk about the Doyers.
no, they're going to win the World Series again. There's no point.
Well, this is going to be what's interesting about that sport.
Do the Dodgers and Mets square
Yes.
off in the NLCS again? Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, it's hard not to want to pick that.
Phillies will be there again.
They have a weird. They're kind of becoming the new Braves. The Braves won in 21, and then they lost Freeman. They ran it back, and it's kind of. I wouldn't say the Braves are done, but it's kind of run its course a little bit. I feel like the Phillies are that.
You think they're that team kind of running their course a
They
little
came
bit?
close. They didn't win it, and last year felt like it was
Getting
kind of
older.
a little bit. Yeah,
Window closing.
a little bit to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Padres will be around again as well. They'll be good.
I just assume the big spenders are going to be good.
Yeah, that's the way it works every year.
It's unfortunate, but
$765 million. You could have a worse weekend than that. That's for damn sure.
I don't know if we'll get to it. Do you have Blazers on your show sheet?
I do not. I mean, I know that they played this weekend, but it's not necessarily in my notes.
Well, one of those games, they lost by 40, and
They
that
did.
team they lost to had 4 wins.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Not good. I love when I choose to not gamble on them, they do that. And then when I choose for them to, not cover a spread, they always cover the spread.
Ayton played 2 minutes in the second half. Chance was asked and basically said he sucked.
He's not good. Not giving effort.
Didn't like his spirit, I believe was the quote.
Yeah, I think that was what. Yeah, I think that you're right there. I'll just say this because I don't really have it on the show sheet.
No.
And I'm being genuinely honest here. I know people that cover that team. We work with one of them.
We do.
There's a lot of great people around.
Bless them.
They're not worth your time. Them as an organization this year have just told us this is pointless. So, you want to go to a game once in a while because the tickets are cheap? Cool. I might be there next Friday.
Yeah,
or this
you want to
Friday.
take your kids, have an experience, go out. Okay, fine. Pick. But now we'll see if they start selling who the opponents are coming through town.
Well, this week is Wemby on Friday because we got Cup action. Nothing about this team is going to be the same as next year. The system, the coach, all of that's going to be different. They're not developing.
Clinton's not playing because he's dinged up.
I haven't had this take in a while, but they're truly an irrelevant thing that they don't deserve anybody's time. And I hate being that guy on a Monday at 6 a.m. because there's a lot to get to.
Not right now.
Legitimately, what are you still reading, watching, following for? They're pointless.
Yeah, 2 of the guys that had vital years ahead of them this year were Scoot and Klingon, and neither of them in the lineup right now. And that
Scoot played last night.
Oh, he was back
last
last night?
night,
Okay. I was working last night, so I missed the game. I didn't see much of the old Laker game, but I did see what happened on Friday night, and it wasn't pretty. But when you're not giving me even the young guys, not good. Not good, Bob.
It's just terrible.
Klingon was one of the few bright spots early on in the year that at least would get you excited for what the
by
future
the
would
way,
look like.
The minute he went out, they couldn't play any.
Defensively, they're horrible
whatsoever.
It's amazing how much better defensively he is already than DeAndre Ayton. Who's
What are they
got
going to do with Ayton?
$200 million contract or whatever it is.
They're going to have
Well,
to.
they're not going to be able to move
Yes.
him by sitting him. That's part of the problem.
Well, and Anthony Simons is having a horrible year, and that's continuing. Guy's having some of the worst numbers he's ever put up, and his trade value is just sinking like a stone. That's the other part of it, that you're trying to play these guys to get their trade value up, but 2 of the guys that you're trying to move, their value on the open market sinking ahead of the deadline. So it's almost being a double negative right now.
I'm being legitimately honest here.
You're so bad that they sat LeBron.
Well, yeah, the Blazers are the team you sit your star against.
I saw Bronny got in. Did Bronny get in the game last night? Did he play? Is he back in the NBA?
I actually
don't know.
didn't watch last night's game.
I
was
saw a
on
tweet
this-
about him being the Bronny was the victory cigar, and that made people chuckle. But I didn't know if he was back in the NBA.
I don't know.
or
It was
not.
on the second TV, and about that time was when the Bolts were acting like they might beat the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I'm not
making a
mad. I have an antenna, but like I've quit the antenna games.
Yeah,
Like that's where I'm at. Think about that for a second.
it tells you a lot right there.
It kind of does.
Once you've lost Sprague, you've lost.
Well, I just think we need to be honest about this. This is no Blazer spin. How do you win an Ayton and Simons trade at this point?
By the way, Bronny did play. Played 3 minutes. He was 0 for 2. You don't. That's the answer. You don't. You take a loss, and then you move on.
You're too valuable, veteran guy. They're going to move that and get even better assets.
No.
Really?
No, they're
They
not.
got them.
Really?
Basically, we got to move the contracts off the books to give you as much flexibility for whatever you might try to pull off.
I just think they're a disaster of an organization right now.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
I don't know where they're going.
Why do you bring Chauncey back? There's so many things you could say. So many things.
So many things we've been screaming from the rooftop since July that are now coming to fruition. How about that?
Yeah.
Who could have possibly seen this coming? A lame duck season.
Ridiculous.
No.
Second year for your point guard. You're in a lame duck year.
Yes, you
what
are.
You doing?
That's how you develop young guys right there. You keep your coach around for one more year.
But Jody, she'll spend money to get out of a TV
she'll
contract.
do it. She'll do it, man. Not till January 1st, but she'll do it.
$4 million buyout for the coach?
No,
No.
too expensive.
That's too much.
People
It's too much
should
money.
listen to this show. You know.
I think they do. I largely think they do. I think social media has tainted how people are following the Blazers. Like, if you go on social media, your timeline might be full of Blazer fans who are watching and tweeting and blue skying or whatever. I don't think most people are watching, to be honest with you.
No, especially without Klingon in the lineup, because he was one of the few guys that was at least a draw. At
Yeah.
least to sell me is like, hey, look at that.
draw.
That's the
He's
future.
also
He's playing
also
awesome. He's
an
playing
energizing factor
yes,
for that team.
Intimidator, effort, hustle, intensity, everything that you want from a young player.
That guy's going to be the captain of the team next year.
Yes,
I would
yes.
argue of
he
the
should
three,
be right now.
Of the three future young guys, he's the best one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love Shaden, baby Kobe. I hope Scoot can figure this out, but like he's easily the best thing you'd point to, right?
Without a doubt.
And
Without
then,
a doubt.
And then you could debate if the next guy is it Tumani?
It could be.
Maybe.
With the season he's having, it very well could be.
So it's just like, those are what you have to point to.
Then what do you got? Delano Banton?
6'9" point guard.
Hey, he's big, ragey,
Combo guard.
he can score.
The new Magic?
Oh, the new Magic, yeah.
I did not have baseball and Blazers on my bingo card right out of the gate today.
I kind of had a feeling that's maybe where they get like shoved because today is going to be a lot of football.
Yeah.
Put them in their locker early
There
on and then
was-
move on for the
there
rest
was
of
a
the
lot
show.
lot of stuff that happened over the weekend.
Too much
It was.
stuff.
Overwhelming.
Well, it's a busy show. Obviously, Dirt's coming in really hot and happy and excited to
Yes.
talk about his Big Ten Ducks.
That's right, bitch. We got a Big Ten championship over here.
The 1 seed in
Mighty
the college
different.
football playoff.
Got absolutely hosed, by the way. Absolutely hosed.
We'll talk about that. Who
Yeah.
got hosed? Who got rewarded? I cannot believe the team that got the biggest reward of all of this. It's the stupidest thing from the playoff bracket I think that we had.
I love that my team
I
picked
want
a
it all.
year when it was when it was not necessary to go 13-0. We went 13-0.
Yeah.
And this whole thing's going to,
punished.
by the way, get changed in 2 years. So this won't continuously happen. But, first time down the rabbit hole, don't worry. We'll take on your hardest battle.
Well, let's get it going. Let's start diving in. We had conference championship weekend in college football. We got some NFL to talk about. We'll get to the Oregon Ducks. We'll get to the playoff bracket. All of that. Dirt and Sprague, loaded show. We get it going next on The Fan.
It's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Conference championship week. College football. Mighty good, mighty tasty.
It was. Friday night, first half sucked. Second half at least got somewhat interesting, but I got a little worried after that game and then the Big 12 title game early on Saturday morning of like, are we in store for a bunch of blowouts? Because I was really excited for the ASU Iowa State game, and it got off to a good start, back and forth. They were moving it up and down. You're like, hey, it's going to be a fun little game. And then you look up, and Iowa State turned it over 3 straight times, and Arizona State's up by 40. Like, well, that escalated quickly, and then from then on out, it was nothing but awesome football games.
Well, the ACC one was interesting because it wasn't that way in the first half.
It was not. It was kind of the reverse of Friday night. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and you look up, you're like, wait a minute, SMU's back in this ballgame. They got a chance here.
I saw somebody jokingly say on social media during the SEC title game that if this was the Big Ten, we'd all be complaining, but it's not. So we're talking about how great this football is. And I said, that's pretty accurate, actually.
If that was Iowa, Wisconsin, we would all be rolling our eyes saying this is a terrible product.
But it's not.
Texas
and
Georgia.
And we're like, this just means more, just bigger up front.
I mean, it was funny that the Georgia, I thought, got better with their backup quarterback in the game, which made me wonder, is that even the right move for them going forward? Do they want to play him? And then, am I crazy thinking Texas is better than Arch? Like, I might be picking up what Texas fan is putting down.
What do you mean, that Arch is better?
That he could be better than Quinn
I thought
Ewers.
it was the rare game where both backup quarterbacks might be better options than their current starters.
Like, they just saw Haynes King and Georgia Tech use a quarterback run game a week and a half ago and put up 30-plus points on Georgia on the road. And Arch is an elite athlete, and you didn't think at all like, hey, maybe this should be a part of it.
They only did it a couple times.
Only a couple times, and they only ran the ball for 30 yards as a team. Could have helped your run game there a little bit, Sark.
Texas is a tough team for me to gauge.
Yes.
Like, I think they're one of the top 3 talented teams in this playoff.
I think their defense is pretty good.
But they haven't their one test has been Georgia, and they can't win that game.
It is hilarious how they have essentially been allowed, for all the cries from SEC fans this weekend, Alabama mainly, about getting left out of the playoffs. Texas is a hilarious case study of their big non-conference game was Michigan, which at the time looked like a big win.
But we didn't think that was a big win,
no.
Really, did we?
I mean, they were ranked in the top 10 preseason rankings. That gets to a whole different debate about why do we even have preseason rankings. We shouldn't, but that was their big marquee win early on. Their best win in conference was Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That was their best.
At the very end of the year.
Who lost to Notre Dame as well.
Their other good win was Vandy.
Yeah, who was ranked in the top 25 when they beat him, and then Vanderbilt finished the season 6-6. So they have a very interesting resume where a lot of teams in the SEC had to face a gauntlet. They didn't. And the only 2 times they played one of the upper echelon teams in the conference was Georgia twice, and they went 0-2 against Georgia, once at home and once on a neutral site.
The weird thing about this is I can't really argue with the talent, the star ranking, all the look of Texas. Like Texas against fill-in-the-blank team in the playoff that's not named Georgia, they'd have a great shot to win, or they'd be favored against everybody.
I mean, they play Clemson in round 1, and they're going to be, what are they, a 14 or 11
and a half.
11.5 point favorite.
And I'm going to pick them to cover that number because I think Clemson's the most overrated team in the playoff potentially. That being, like, would they be favored against Oregon, Texas? They can take on Oregon in the semis.
They could.
I think Texas would be favored.
At this, I don't know after
Even
this
if
weekend.
Oregon beats Tennessee and Ohio State, I think Texas, if they get through ASU and Clemson, I think they're going to be favored in that game. A slight favorite, not a big favorite, but a slight favorite.
Sure. The other part of that, too, is going to be, and we can get to this broader theme about how my team got absolutely jobbed with this bracket. You know where that game would take place?
Ooh, I don't know where the semi is.
Cotton Bowl.
That game would take place in Dallas. Yeah. You're going to have to play Texas in the semifinals in the heart of Texas.
You guys, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's great. We're just
Railroad.
having a wonderful time over here, man. Just looking at this bracket like, hey, great. Isn't it great to be the number 1 overall seed? Get the toughest game in the second round and might have to play Texas in Dallas. That's
Congratulations.
Great. Yeah, thanks for going 13-0. I'm sure glad my team didn't lose a game this year.
So what is more likely? They change up how they do the seeding, or they go to 16-team playoff?
Both. I think they're going to do both.
They're definitely going to get to 16 swag, but I also think they get to redo the seeding stuff.
You have to. This is an abomination of a bracket.
Well, you mentioned Texas, right? And Texas came close to beating Georgia in the SEC championship game, but they lost again. I actually want to highlight the team your team beat this weekend, who put up a better fight than I thought they would.
Yeah.
But also in a weird way, I know that was a one-score final. Even in the midst of going on that little run to get back in the game, I still never took them serious enough to say they're going to beat Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, even on that
weird?
last possession, you needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion just to tie the game.
I didn't think they were going to get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Here's a hot take. I watched this game laying down in my bedroom, and I literally in my head was like, they're going to throw a pick.
Yeah, he's going to throw one. He's got
and
one.
I think 3 plays later, Nico Reed, interception, game over. Even when they cut it to one score, I never felt like that was the margin because there was no indication they could stop Tez. There was no indication they could get a stop from Oregon's offense. When Oregon needed something, Oregon got something. And I'll go further because we can get into the playoff bracket. We'll get to the committee stuff. We'll get to all the audio that we had from yesterday. Why did Penn State get the most favorable matchup of all the teams?
I know.
You want to talk about Texas? Texas's road, the resume is not amazing. At least they went through the SEC. I'll at least give them that for whatever that is. Penn State literally has no good wins. Even Illinois, I think, is 24th or 25th. I don't think you saw Illinois. I saw Illinois is not great.
They're fine. They're
Minnesota
not great.
and Illinois are the same team. Do you think Minnesota's great? No, probably not. That's their best win. And they lost both their tough games. And they get SMU and then
At
Boise
home.
State?
And then Boise on a neutral field.
Come on, man.
It's laughable.
How did you conclude as a committee? I actually think the committee got the teams right, even though I don't think Penn State should be in
the
because I hate
committee
Penn
didn't
State.
set up the seeding deal. That was the conference commissioners.
I'm well aware of that. But how do you go through, and I'm kind of arguing pro-Duck stuff here as a Beav. How do you say, well, Oregon just beat Penn State. They finished 13-0. And let's reward them with the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State, and then Penn State, who lost, and for a large portion in different chunks of that game was down multiple scores.
Yeah, Oregon led the entire game. They scored on the opening drive, and Penn State never led.
And couldn't beat Ohio State. Let's give them the loser of the ACC title game, which may or may not be that good in SMU, and then their advantage when they win that game is they get to play what many, and they could prove to be wrong here, what many believe is the weakest of the 4 conference champion ranked teams.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's why they're going to redraw the entire thing. And I love that my team is going to have to be the guinea pig to go through it in year one of making this make sense. And I will admit this. It was kind of a weird feeling. Like, you and I were both really sick this weekend, and I'm sure you can hear in the sound of my voice right now. So a bit of it was like a fever dream that I was in on Saturday, like falling asleep and waking up like, what's the score of all the games? Like catching back up on things.
I got that sense when I was texting you, and I'm like, oh, no, I think he's really out of it.
And then I'll text you an hour later, hey, these games are great, man. I'm having a wonderful time over here. It was a really weird feeling watching that game because we have been talking about this for weeks now about is it more advantageous to be the 5 seed or the 1 seed, depending on how the matchups break down. And earlier, you already had Boise State winning, so you knew Boise State was essentially going to get a bye because they were already in that ranking spot. So that took them out of one of those 5 through 12 spots. And then you had Texas lose, which was going to likely put them on your side of the bracket if you won and make them the 5 seed. And all of this stuff is unfolding, and it was a really weird feeling watching a game where I was thrilled that Oregon won. I was jacked that they're Big Ten champs. Like, you obviously never want to. I'm never going to root for my team to lose a game.
An undefeated season.
Undefeated season
right?
is incredible at 13-0. They've never done that in school history. Lanning has added another, pelt on his wall of a conference championship win. But in the back of my mind, the entire time, all I could think about was they're going to get screwed, aren't they? Watch this all break down tomorrow. And then I wake up Sunday morning, I turn on the the college football playoff selection show, and you see the rankings, and you're like, oh, my God, this is exactly how it played out. The fear that everybody has been arguing for weeks now about how it's more advantageous to be the 5 seed or potentially the 6 seed than it is the number 1 overall seed. It's a laughable system, and they're going to change it. It's only a matter of when, not if. It just sucks. If Oregon wins a national championship this year, there has never been a harder path to do it than what they're going to have to do.
Look, I don't need to tell you this because you and your fans are going to scream about it, but legitimately being honest, it's going to be the greatest title of all time.
They would have to play. So when you just look at the rankings of teams of where they're at, potentially in the second round, so not where they are seeded in the playoff, because Ohio State's 8 and 9. They're ranked 6 and 7.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to play, depending on who wins that game. If Ohio State wins that game, you're going to have to beat 3 of the top 6 teams in the country in the playoff to do it.
You have to beat Ohio State twice in a year.
Even
if I don't trust Ohio State and I think they'll choke,
they're an incredibly talented
they still
team.
have all the stars
Yes.
on that. Tennessee, their quarterback can be up and down, but man, they got a nasty
Their
little
defense
pass
is
rush.
awesome. Yes.
And then your
Texas
reward
in
is
Dallas.
Texas, who I think they'd be slight favorites. Could be wrong on that, but
Yep.
I think they could be because what you mentioned, the Cotton Bowl.
It's essentially a home game for them.
And then
the national championship
it's probably
potentially
Georgia, right?
against Georgia. And where's the national championship played?
in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
So another game where you go to Georgia in a neutral site, quote unquote, where the Bulldogs will have probably like a 65-35 split of fans, right?
It was a really weird feeling, man. And it was the first time that the expanded playoff hit home for me. One, because the game didn't have the live or die feeling that past conference championship games have had for me
With
as a
only
fan.
4 slots.
It's
yeah.
like, all right, I know if they lose, they're still in, and it might actually be better if they do lose, but winning the Big Ten is awesome, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is to win a national championship, and there is zero doubt that their path became tougher to win a national championship by winning the Big Ten on Saturday night, and that is absolutely ludicrous.
Let's go through the bracket. We'll continue on the conversation. What do you think about the Ducks' path that they got as the overall number 1 seed in the first college football playoff bracket? You can share your thoughts at the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. They teach you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. We have a whole lot more to get into. We'll get to some audio of some of the conference title games. Hear from Dan Lanning, Oregon beating Penn State in the Big Ten title game. Bill Oram's going to join us at 8. That'll be the Daily Ticker. He was in Indy. He is back in Oregon, so he'll be back on with us for the Daily Ticker today at 8. It is a loaded show. Chime in how you feel about the Ducks and what they got as the 1 seed. We'll get to that coming up next on The Fan.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Reynolds Defense Firm. If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys that you can put your trust in. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks 45-37 win over Penn State earns Dan Lanning's team the Big Ten title in their first year in the conference, the number 1 overall seed in the very first 12-team college football playoff, where they will face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl on January 1st. Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State, the other conference champions that earned first-round byes after Clemson upset SMU, who got the final at-large spot over Alabama. Round 1 will open up Friday, December 20th, Indiana at Notre Dame. Then on Saturday the 21st, Clemson visits Texas, and SMU is at Penn State. Seahawks have taken control of the NFC West with a thorough 30-18 beating of the Cardinals, led by Zach Charbonnet's 193 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs clinched the AFC West with another last-second 19-17 win, this time over the Chargers. Tonight, the Bengals and Cowboys square off in Big D. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KETU Channel 2. Cincy a 5.5-point favorite on the road. 12th-ranked Oregon Ducks basketball team suffered its first loss of the season on a banked-in 3 in the final second from UCLA's Dylan Andrews that gave the Bruins a 73-71 victory. And the Major League hot stove went nuclear Sunday night. Mets have reportedly agreed to a record 15-year, $765 million contract to bring outfielder Juan Soto to Queens after he played in the Bronx for the Yankees last season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand at the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new long-sleeve tee.
was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Chris says that the path for the 5 seed and the 6 seed better than the 1 seed. 100% accurate there. As we're talking about the college football playoff, the final 12-team CFP bracket reveal. I don't remember. You guys could help me with this. I feel like last year it was sometime in the night that I was watching on my couch Florida State get screwed, or was it just a stormy day?
It's always stormy day. It's always a Sunday morning.
It's always Sunday morning.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I just the vibes. I felt like I was on my couch and it was kind of dark out. Look, I hate Penn State. I've not been shy of admitting this for obvious reasons here. Look, they make it okay. I don't think they have anything impressive on their resume. I get them being in the bracket. I actually think they got the teams right.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm not doing any debate of Bama stuff. Like, is Bama better than SMU? Probably.
Sure.
Should Bama not lose by 3 touchdowns in Norman? 100%.
Yes.
So there's the end of the argument. I also hate that they're threatening to have no more good games now because they can't win in their own conference.
I mean, it's been a laughable response from everybody involved, starting with Nick Saban on the selection show yesterday.
What did you think of the selection show?
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the guys on the dais, to be honest with you. I don't think Joey Galloway or Greg McElroy are bringing me much, and them yelling back and forth.
Boy,
Kirk
Galloway
Herbstreit
loves to just needle people
Yes.
and make them sound like they don't know what they're talking
Kirk
about.
Herbstreit took a shot immediately at Booger McFarland, was like, I think you're just taking low-hanging fruit there, acting like this is an easy decision. It was a very weird
It is
vibe.
an easy decision.
Based on what we saw last year. It was interesting. And then Saban started it, and then Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama, continued it, where there's this weird fantasyland world that SEC people are living in, as if the losses that cost them more teams going to the college football playoff were all non-conference games.
Yeah.
Ole Miss didn't lose a non-conference game.
No.
Alabama didn't lose a non-conference game. They lost 3 SEC conference games.
Yep.
And Saban said it, we're going to have to reevaluate the way we schedule. You know, it's great for fans. You get these big games in September, but is it best for us? We got to reevaluate.
I thought that was an odd position to take.
And then Greg Byrne, their AD, who, by the way, got community noted on Twitter after sending out the same thing, basically, of like, we got to you played Mercer in November.
Yeah.
You got blown out by Oklahoma, who I don't know if you need a reminder, is now a team in the SEC. And they were dog-ass this year.
They were not good at all.
And they whooped your ass at the end of the season when you controlled your own destiny to get to Atlanta. So we yelled about this for weeks. I am always willing to give the SEC the benefit of the doubt because I think they are the best conference with the best players and the best teams. And so, yeah, you trip up once, I'm willing to look past it. When you lost to Oklahoma, that was it. And this idea that it's non-conference scheduling is just a laughable, bizarro world.
Can you help me? Can you explain to me why Clemson was 12? I didn't remember all of the breakdown. Like, I knew the 4 byes, the highest conference champions. I guess I was just not understanding, and I don't feel like they explained it on the show when I watched it. Because eventually I turned it off. I just was tired of listening to the debate about Bama SMU.
Yeah.
Just felt like it was half the show. Is there a reason Clemson got the 12 seed and SMU lost to them, got the 11?
Because Clemson is technically ranked 16th in the college football playoff rankings. They're not even in the top 12. But they get an auto bid because they won the conference.
But why would they be 12 and not 11?
Because they get the last spot because they're not technically ranked inside the top 12. SMU was ranked 10th, but they moved back a spot because Arizona State is technically ranked behind them.
All right.
But they got a first-round bye, so Arizona State jumped, which moved SMU down a spot, and Clemson was ranked 16th, but they got the auto spot, so it gave them 12.
You know the one I'd be willing to argue about or debate or whatever, ASU Boise State. I would have put ASU 3.
I would have too. After what they did,
given them that they thumped. I mean, it was no doubter. Kenny Dillingham, and he made a good point. Their AD said, "Hey, we've played 10 of our 12 games against Power 4 opponents."
Yes,
and with our starting quarterback playing, I think they had one loss.
Yes.
So, I just would have taken that into consideration, and the way that they beat Iowa State. And I know Boise took care of UNLV. I give them their flowers. I think they're setting an interesting precedent in this version of the playoff of saying, group of 5 team, put one on your resume that you almost beat a Power 4 team. That's your second best thing of the year.
Yeah, that's essentially the main argument of their resume.
And I'm happy for Boise State fan. Congratulations, you get Heisman finals. I would have put Arizona State, Boise State. I would have flipped them.
I would have too. After the way they just manhandled Iowa State,
that was impressive.
You cannot argue to me that and look, I don't think the Big 12 is the best conference in the country.
I don't either.
You cannot argue to me it's on equal footing with the Mountain West. You just can't.
No.
The level of talent, the level of play that exists there is night and day to me from what the Mountain West is. And looking at Boise struggle with Wyoming and Nevada and Oregon State late in the season.
Those are games they lose to Colorado, Kansas State, maybe Kansas, Arizona State,
tough
Iowa
environments
State,
you have to go into. It's just different, man.
Even Baylor kind of finished the year somewhat strong.
Yeah.
Like, those are all teams that if you play that football that you did against Wyoming, you're losing to all those other teams.
Yes, you are.
So that was my only, aside from Oregon and Penn State, that was kind of my other takeaway is ASU, Boise State. I would have flipped them 3 and 4.
Well, and also on top of that, the advantage that they got in a conference championship. Now, you argue they earned it because they beat UNLV early in the season in their stadium. But having a conference championship in your own building in Boise weather from a team from UNLV who we joked about last week didn't even know where it was on the map, that is a massive advantage for Boise State. So Arizona State going on the road and doing what they did. By the way, their best wide receiver was out of the game too. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what the update is on him if they think he's going to be back for the playoff, but he had a shoulder injury, I believe. He had 1,000 yards this year. He's an absolute stud. That was one of the reasons I thought Iowa State was going to win the game because he's been dynamic for them all year, and they just smoked Iowa State, man.
Which of the 4 seeds, which one would you wanted Oregon to have as their matchup? Would it have been Indiana, Notre Dame?
In terms of who playing the winner of that game?
We talk about Oregon. Oregon's reward for going undefeated and winning the Big Ten, and we'll get to all of that at the top of the hour. Their reward is Tennessee, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and they certainly could win that game. I would not be shocked at all. Then their next reward potentially could be Texas. Clemson, maybe they pull up Texas or ASU. A Dillingham versus Landing game would be mighty tasty. Which of the 4 seeds would you have rather had for your first game?
I mean, it would either be SMU, Penn State, or Indiana, Notre Dame, which I think is highlighting one section of the bracket being far more difficult than the other one.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia has a path here to just...
And if their quarterback's hurt, look, I don't know what Gunnar Stockton's going to be able to do. I don't know what the update is on Carson Beck and if you even want him to play at this point because he was atrocious in the first half of that game.
He's not been good.
On Saturday, it honestly opened the gate where I could see a pathway to Penn State or Notre Dame making a national championship because that's just the world that we're living in right now, where if Notre Dame beats Indiana, which I think that they will, you get Georgia potentially with a backup quarterback. Now, the game would be at the Sugar Bowl, so it's basically a home game for Georgia down in the South. But we mentioned Penn State and their path. It's interesting the way that it broke down and the way we're going to feel. This happens NCAA tournament time. You just get some teams with easier paths than others, and they're able to take advantage of it. But to the point of listeners, look, I would love to be wrong on this because people are trying to say you can't say it's going to be the hardest until you see how the games work out. And we have been through a year of nothing but chaos in the sport.
Sure.
So maybe Arizona State beats Texas, and you get Arizona State.
Maybe Clemson beats Texas.
Maybe Clemson beats Texas. I have no clue. I'm just arguing if chalk holds.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, though, that this hits sometimes in the tournament where you get a 1 seed that goes down in the second round, and all of a sudden who's ever in that bracket in March is like, wait a minute, we don't got to go through Duke anymore? They lost in the second round. This is a huge advantage for us. And so that could end up happening as well. I think the argument is just if chalk holds with the teams that are heavy favorites in the first round, it's going to be a really tough path.
Imagine if SMU upsets Penn State.
Got to be glorious.
SMU, Boise State.
Did you see Marcus Freeman's opening comment, by the way, on Indiana?
I didn't.
He said, I Googled him. I took some time. I Googled him.
Oh.
I was like, oh, okay.
Who would you rather face? Let's get that on a Monday. Tennessee or Ohio State?
Probably Tennessee.
Really?
Probably Tennessee. Might be wrong there, but I just beating a team. I know Ohio State's got issues on their offensive line. I was shocked at the point spread of that game. Shocked.
I thought Herb Street made a good point of Ohio State might have wanted to go on the road because the minute they don't get that third down, the crowd's going to boo them.
Oh, they're going to get
That's
booed.
a good point.
Yeah, they fall down 10-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
They're going to get booed the entire time.
Oh, I'm taking Tennessee all day. They're 7-point underdogs.
They're getting a hook, I think, in some places too.
Really?
7.5.
Yeah, maybe they get absolutely thumped and Nico's awful. Ohio State has not looked like that kind of team at any point of the year to me.
No, they did against Indiana, but I don't have that high of a belief in Indiana and what
yeah.
they're a really fun story this year, but I think that was an indicator of where their talent's at. that defensive line against a banged-up Ohio State offensive line, that's a tough matchup for the Buckeyes.
Even 7 right now at Aylen.
Is it even 7?
Okay.
Yeah. I take the 7 there. All right. Good thoughts coming in, too, at the YouTube chat and the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. We'll get into Oregon winning the Big Ten at the top of the hour. Let's hear from some of the local affiliates. Conference championship game, you get some good calls. Let's get to that coming up next on The Fan.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Which game are you most excited for in the playoff?
First round matchups?
Yeah. Which one gets your juices flowing the most?
I honestly don't even know if it's close for me.
Tennessee, Ohio State?
Yeah. I hope that there's upsets. I hope we like Indiana.
I think Indiana's
after everything I've
hang
said,
a little bit closer than people
that
think.
game
It's
being
the Battle
on
of
Friday
Indiana.
night as well.
Yeah.
You could have snow. Who knows what's going on there? They don't like each other. They're close by. I think that one potentially could be the most exciting.
Yeah, I mean, just Clemson doesn't get me excited to watch them, whether it's a conference championship game or a playoff game. I'm not super thrilled about that. SMU has been a really fun story. Them going on the road to Penn State to play in that weather.
And that's the other part is the home game
not
element of
seeing
this,
it.
right?
Yeah.
I'll give you a take, and I honestly felt this way in the moment. If SMU was going to score that touchdown when they were driving, I legitimately thought Lashley was going to go for 2 in the win.
Try and win the game.
And I'm kind of stunned he didn't.
Yeah.
Because I thought at that point, they had stormed all the way back. They had done enough, I thought, in the committee's eyes to say, no, we deserve to be in. We lose a close conference championship game to a good Clemson team. We're in.
Yeah.
And if they didn't get in, oh my God, this is where the committee was not going to fail us and where you were right, and I just didn't think about this. By not putting SMU in and putting Bama in, they would have said we don't care about conference championship games, and college football financially cares too much about that for them to do that. And so I was just a little bummed that Lashley didn't say, nah, to hell with this. We came all the way back. Our whole season's just been magical. Let's go for it. They had all the momentum. And then that kickoff return, too much.
That was brutal, man. After you tie the game up, you give up a big kickoff for like the one thing that you cannot do.
And then like
spot.
a 15-yard catch, and
Like,
I'm just
oh,
like,
God.
Damn it.
They're right there in field. And of course, the guy, what was it, 53-yarder to win 55-yarder.
55.
In college, like that's almost unheard of.
I
man.
wanted him to go for 2, and I was a little bummed that he didn't. I thought they couldn't be stopped at that point. Just go for the jugular.
Well, and I wonder now that we have that precedent that is set, to your point, if we get coaches that do that in the future.
I hope that they do.
I'm just like, hey, we know that we're in. It'd be great to win this. If not, we don't get a home playoff game or whatever the case. Let's try and win the game, and if we don't, hey, we're in the playoff either way.
Let's start with that game. I got the radio affiliate calls, the team play-by-play guys. I love to do this. Let's play that game. Clemson gets a great kickoff return, a big catch, 55-yard field goal. Here's Clemson radio.
So this will be an attempt of 56 off of the left hash for Hoosier. Yep. Casperson to snap, Sweeney to hold. Snap, hold, kick on its way. Got the distance, doesn't have the accuracy. He hit it! He hit it! It's a 56-yard field goal to send Clemson to the playoffs.
Let's go, baby! Way to redeem yourself. We talked about field goal team all year with the block field goals. And guess what? They come together in the ACC championship. And they kick a 56.
We've seen some stuff.
Oh, my God, I can't believe he made that.
A game. Oh!
That is
go,
incredible.
Baby.
The offspring of 2 former Clemson athletes has won the ACC championship.
What?
You cannot kill Dabo Swinney.
You can't, man. You can only hope to contain him.
Him and Patrick Mahomes.
Him and Mahomes.
You know what this is going to do, though? You know what that win is going to do?
What?
One of the things that we have debated and argued about, and I am firmly against this, but I think they're going to use this example to their argument. Clemson lost twice this year to SEC teams.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia beat them handedly in the first week of the season.
Yeah.
I believe South Carolina finished in 6th place in the SEC this year. I think when you look at the final standings, somewhere in that range. Beat them in their own stadium, by the way. Went on the road and beat them. When they expand the playoff to 16 teams, which will happen, the SEC is going to use this argument to say this is why we need guaranteed teams in. Clemson making the playoffs as a 3-loss team when they lost the 2 times they played to an SEC team is ridiculous, and they're going to use this as their case study.
Dabo also gets to say, because I think they're going to lose to Texas personally, he gets to say, what pressure?
We got no pressure.
We made playoff,
No,
baby.
we got here, man.
Damn it. Yeah, he's not wrong necessarily, but I think that's what's frustrating.
They couldn't run the ball on SMU. If you can't run the ball on SMU, good luck running the ball in Texas.
I don't give them much hope. I think they're happy to be there.
Yeah.
I think Klubnik's going to throw a pick six. Here's Georgia's Learfield radio call, their game-winning overtime run.
I formation. Cash Jones the fullback, ETN the tailback. Beck under center. Hand it to ETN, straight ahead. Touchdown! Touchdown! Dogs are SEC champions! Dogs have won it!
I thought that quarterback died when he took that hit from the Texas DB.
Dear God, dude.
He had to have been knocked out momentarily.
He did not know where he was.
No chance.
No clue what planet he was on.
I also thought he was short of the first down, but they didn't review it. Nobody talked about it.
Yeah, you brought that up when I got in today.
I think he's hit short of the line. Not that it matters, but like I just was like, shouldn't this, what would it have been, third down? So it's like, they kicking a field goal if they don't get that touchdown on the next play?
I mean, the guy injected some life into their offense in the second half through a horrendous pick late in the game that almost cost him the game.
Yeah.
But it was funny because you brought that up when I got in. I didn't really think about that, but that was one of the bigger hits that you could, he got absolutely lit
I was
up.
glad they didn't call targeting, too. They just threw it, but they evaluated
They picked it up,
targeting.
and you lose your quarterback at the end of the first half on where you're just trying to throw a Hail Mary, and he's scrambling around. He gets hit at the last second. I mean, that was tough quarterback injury luck for Georgia.
Is there a reason he played and Rashada didn't? Should we read into that at all?
That Gunnar Stockton did?
Yeah.
I'm imagining it's just because he's their backup. I don't know. I haven't looked at the Georgia depth chart very much this year.
Rashada went over there. I just kind of naturally assumed he was the next in line. I didn't know Gunnar Stockton.
This guy was like highly, he was a blue chip recruit. Five-star quarterback, and so I just think that's what Georgia's quarterback room looks like, is you got a lot of them down there.
Here, let's go to ASU. Scattaboo was really big. Iowa State couldn't stop him at all. Here's Arizona State's call.
Scattaboo in the backfield. Scattaboo gets the handoff. Scattaboo finds room, and Scattaboo is still on his feet. Gets outside to the 40, to the 50. Scattaboo still on his feet to the Iowa State 40, to the 30, and finally is dragged down inside the 30-yard line.
Sun Devil Radio Network on the call there. They couldn't stop him. They had no answer for Scattaboo. They steamrolled Iowa State.
They ran for 248 yards as a team. He had 170 himself, and I want to say of those 170, like 115 of them were after contact. He was just a one-man machine. Levitt played a great game. His legs were deadly in it as well. Give him a ton of credit. I don't know if Scattaboo's going to be in New York. He should be in New York, especially after that performance. I love that he did the Heisman celebration.
Yeah, he did.
He's got a bit of cockiness to him that I can kind of appreciate. But
is he the guy when you look up college football player?
Him.
That's
name,
his picture.
build,
yes.
everything.
Yes. Just like a absolute grinder.
Is he the next Taysom Hill?
I don't know. Can he throw it?
He tried in one of the plays. He was going to get tackled, and he threw one
what
up.
Are you doing?
Dillingham looked around like, what did
he was
going to
have a heart attack on that play.
A quarterback.
No, I know.
That was one of the crazier, dumber plays that I've ever seen.
Scattaboo just looks like a football player.
He does.
He's just like, those are the biggest legs I've ever seen in my life, by the way.
He's going to run over you. He's going to run around you. He's going to go through you. He was amazing in that game.
We'll get to Oregon's Big Ten title game win against Penn State. Dan Lanning sounding off. Oregon getting the 1 seed. Loaded second hour. We'll get to all of that. Hour 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan and the Odyssey app.
Live on the Odyssey app is KFXX KWJJ HD2 Portland 1080 The Fan.
The algorithm we're using is not perfect.
An Odyssey sports station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks finished the college football regular season undefeated, winning the Big Ten title 45-37 over Penn State. They are the number 1 overall seed in the first 12-team college football playoff and will face the winner of the Tennessee-Ohio State first-round game in the Rose Bowl January 1st. The other first-round games to go Friday, December 20th, it's Indiana at Notre Dame. Then on Saturday the 21st, Clemson visiting Texas. SMU is at Penn State. Your other 3 teams with a first-round bye, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State. Seahawks now control their own destiny in the NFC West after beating the Cardinals 30-18. Zach Charbonnet with 193 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs have won the AFC West. They get another last-second field goal. This time they beat the Chargers 19-17. Tonight, Bengals and Cowboys will square off in Big D. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Cincy a 5.5-point favorite on the road. Trailblazers coming up short on the road in L.A. Anthony Davis had 30 points and 11 rebounds. The Lakers get a 107-98 win. Portland's back home Friday to host the Spurs. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigard from the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand at the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
Hi, everybody. Harry Carey here. We've got a great show lined up for you.
This is Dirt and Sprague.
I once took a pair of binoculars and stared at the sun for over an hour.
Why would you do that?
Curiosity, I guess. Heck, I'm curious like a cat. I have a couple of friends that call me Whiskers.
With Andy Dirt Johnson.
Hey, now, kid, we all know that the moon is not made of green cheese.
Yes, that's true, Harry.
But what if it were made of barbecue spare ribs? Would you eat it then?
And Brendan Sprague.
I know I would. Heck, I'd have seconds. And then polish it off with a tall, cool Budweiser.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in hour number 2. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2, and of course, youtube.com/1080am. The Fan.
What's up, boys? This is what I gotta say today.
Been a lot of college football talk. We had random Juan Soto and Blazer conversation in the first segment.
We did, yeah, right out of the gate on a big football Monday.
Abandon the Blazers. They don't care about you, so you shouldn't care about them.
No, you should not.
And are we going to get $1 billion contract in baseball in the next 5 years?
Feels like it.
765, almost like, okay, we're close to
What was
8.
Ohtani's deal?
It was 700, but it was only 10 years.
Yeah.
10, yeah.
I don't know. I think we will.
I think we will, too. On the direction we're going, we're almost there, man.
We have a lot to get to in the second hour of the program. Oregon won the Big Ten title game this weekend.
Hey!
How about that? 13-0. Credit to Jason Swigard. He called it.
He nailed it on the head. 13-0, undefeated season.
Yeah. The only thing I missed was they're the 1 seed, not the 2 seed.
It really would have liked being the 2 seed in this bracket, but, I digress.
Well, we talked a lot about that in the first hour of the program, the college football playoff bracket and who ended up getting a good path and who got screwed. If you missed it, you can always check out the podcast at 1080thefan.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Oregon got screwed, and the team they beat in the Big Ten title game, Penn State, kind of got rewarded.
Yeah, nice little pathway for them there at number 6.
Very interesting game, this one, because Oregon got out to an 18-point lead.
They did after the pick, 28-10.
And you kind of thought, okay, this is going to go sideways. And immediately, Penn State went on this little burst, and then Oregon responded. Tez Johnson was unstoppable in this game.
Yeah.
11 catches, 181 yards. He had a 16.5 average. I actually thought it was going to be higher than that when I looked at the average. He ended up with a touchdown. Kenyon Sadiq had 2 touchdowns in this game. That was incredible.
Nice little breakout game for baby Brock Bowers.
Been
waiting all year for him.
I thought the play when he scored and he leaped over the Penn State player, I thought that kind of symbolized Oregon's year 1 in the Big Ten.
We're just going to jump right over you. You think you're going to tackle us? Not going to happen. Sorry. This is, by the way, a sophomore tight end.
Yes, a lot to build on for the future of that because Terrence Ferguson is going to go to the NFL.
Yep.
He had 3 catches for 30 yards.
A couple of big ones for him.
Interesting game in the sense of Oregon's offense was unstoppable. Dylan Gabriel had 4 touchdowns. He was 22 of 32 for 283. But it was the other side that kind of left me going, oh, because Penn State's offense, after a slow start, they kind of got it going a little bit.
Yeah.
And had it not been for 2 picks by Drew Aller, you do wonder if this game would have been different, but I kind of think that sums up Drew Aller. Interesting game, but the Ducks win the Big Ten title game in year 1 in the conference.
It's hilarious. 2 different things. If you told me on Friday, the reaction that I would have given you, if you would have told me on Friday that Penn State is going to score 37 points on Oregon's defense, I would have looked at you horrified and said, what? Oregon's going to lose the game? I didn't see that coming. And vice versa, if you would have told me that Oregon was going to score 45, I would have looked at you and said, damn, they're going to blow them out. That's going to be the game, huh? I did some interviews last week. We talked about it ad nauseum, previewed the game. I saw a low-scoring defensive slugfest in every way that I saw that game playing out. I made a bunch of different score predictions on interviews, 24-20, 28-21, 24-17. Like, that was the kind of game that I envisioned in my mind.
You did see a 1-score game in your mind.
I saw a 1-score game. I thought Oregon would win. I thought they'd cover, but I didn't see it being a blowout or a big separation. I had a lot of faith in both defenses. You look at the numbers on the season and what they've both accomplished. You look at the way that they've played in big games throughout the course of the year. I had a lot of trust and confidence in both defenses, and right out of the gate, Oregon came out and just ran it down Penn State's throat. They didn't have any answer, and then Sadiq hurdles the guy, and you're like, all right, that was pretty easy to score. Penn State responds. Now, they had to settle for a field goal on their opening drive, but it just seemingly, unless one team was turning the football over, which Penn State did in a couple of big moments, they moved the ball with ease, and it was really bad defense. It was open receivers. Give a credit to both offensive coordinators. I thought they both called brilliant games and schemed their guys open. But the big takeaway was, I think there's one negative and one positive. The negative is, oh, God, what was that defensively, and is that the way you're going to look the rest of the year? Because that wasn't pretty, and they had a lot of communication breakdowns and wide-open receivers, and paid a lot of attention to Tyler Warren, which left other guys wide open in certain spots, and so that ended up absolutely killing them.
Katron Allen was a monster.
Dude, they had no answer. I mean, he just ran all over them and caught the ball every time they threw it to him as well.
Yeah.
The other takeaway, though, that I had was it was really nice to see that from Oregon's offense. This is a group that at times this year has been a little clunky, at times hasn't quite clicked. They've had their moments where they've been good, and then they kind of go into a lull. Penn State has an elite defense. They have NFL guys at every level. And Oregon moving the ball and scoring 45 points on them and Dylan Gabriel being in complete control was a very nice, pleasant surprise, and it reaffirmed my stance that there's not a quarterback in the country that I'd rather have leading my team in a big game than that guy.
How much of the controlled environment do you think impacts and helps the offenses there? Playing in a dome, no weather, inclement stuff. Like, if I would have told you this, you mentioned the score, 37, you would have been like, okay, what if I say, Dirt, Penn State's going to score 37, they're going to have 523 total yards, which is more than Oregon's going to have, and they're going to outrush Oregon by 111 yards.
Say there's no chance you're going to get
Would
blown
you have said
out.
Oregon lost that game?
Yes, not a doubt in my mind that Oregon's going to lose that game.
And that's the crazy part about it is Penn State still coming up a little short, and again, largely because Aller threw multiple interceptions.
Yeah, he handed him a touchdown that was essentially a pick six, and then for whatever reason on the last drive of the game decided to chuck one up on 1st and 10. Still don't understand why you threw that ball.
I don't either.
They're moving it.
Franklin
you're down by
had
8.
The same reaction I had of like, why?
Why would you throw it? You're moving it with ease all day on Oregon's defense.
Methodically move down the field. Use Warren, use Allen. We don't need
let's
a
just chuck one up
here. And I didn't really understand that thinking at all.
Yeah.
Again, I think it kind of sums up his tenure at Penn State. But winning the Big Ten in year 1, I want to get to some Dan Lanning audio here. Just going into that conference, somehow, and we didn't have it here. I don't think anybody on the station or in the market had it. But somehow this narrative formed of, is Oregon ready for the Big Ten? What?
Can you handle it? Can you handle the physicality?
Just watch this conference that we used to have out here. We were better than you guys. You just had 2 good teams.
The Pac-12 got 2 first-round byes in the college football playoff, man.
How about that?
Arizona State and Oregon represent, baby.
There's 3 Pac-12 teams in there. Oregon, ASU, and Boise State.
Yes, there are.
Represent,
and Oregon
bitch.
State won a conference championship, too.
You're
That's
damn
4
right.
conference championships. What are we
suck
doing?
on that one, college football.
West Coast football, baby.
But I just kind of laughed at that narrative, and not that it was like a real narrative. We had the Penn State guy on, Steve Jones. He was delightful. And he said he had heard that, and he was like, do you watch football? Yeah. And I appreciated that, because that's a guy that does watch football. But to go 13-0, to win the Big Ten title game in year 1, Dan Lanning certainly thought his team was talented enough to do that. There's no doubt about it. But to go do it, I thought you saw the emotions of Dan Lanning in the postgame of just, we actually did do it. We proved everybody wrong. We went through it. We were more physical. We outgunned them. And any style of game that you wanted to play,
we could find a way to win.
Oregon found ways to win. Wisconsin, you're going to drag us down in the cold. Our offense is going to suck. Doesn't matter. Our defense will win the game. Ohio State, you're getting a little bit of a shootout. You've got horses. We've got horses. We're going to be smarter than you.
Yeah.
Boise State, special teams.
Yeah.
Boise State, special teams.
And a punt return.
Penn State, your offense is going to hum at a level it hasn't hummed all year. Cool. We'll hum just enough where we know we can make the big play when we need to. Every style of game Oregon needed to win in, they won in.
Yeah, it was. The symbolism of it was pretty fun to see, and what it meant for them in that group, especially the guys that were there last year that had to go through heartbreaking losses and being so close twice to Washington and so close to going to a college football playoff, and a team that would have been in a 12-team field. Right? It's just funny the way you look at how different the sport is right now. And how different maybe the end of the season feeling is. For Penn State, as an example, they can't win these big games. I think the numbers now for James Franklin is he's lost like 15 of his last 16 against top 5 or top 10 teams. They continuously lose these games. He's out there blaming the officials afterwards, saying we didn't get enough holding calls or whatever. I think the penalty count was like Oregon's 4, Penn State 6. So complain about it all you want. It is funny how different the reaction is for the losing side of it compared to where you were last year as an Oregon fan. But I think these guys, they use that motivation. They use that fuel all off season. I remember talking about this in August, and we had random listeners who were fans of Big Ten teams. Not all of them bought into it, but I remember one listener in particular chiming in August of like, this idea Oregon's just going to steamroll into the Big Ten is ridiculous. Get out of here. And it's like, I remember responding, talk to me in December. Let's see where we're at on this one.
Yeah.
Because there's been this idea that the Big Ten is a difficult conference, and how can you handle it? They're so big. They're so physical. I guess if you're USC, Washington, and UCLA, it's going to be a tough road for you. But for Oregon, that was never a reality. And I think you can argue right now, considering what's going on at Ohio State, now all this could change. Maybe Ohio State wins a national championship for all I know. Maybe they beat Oregon in a semifinal game for all I know. But based on the information we have right now, they are their premier team in the Big Ten, and they are the team with the brightest future in the Big Ten. I don't know where Ryan Day is going to go. If they lose at home to Tennessee, does he get fired? What does that do to their roster? Where do they go higher?
I'd be more scared of Michigan, to be honest with you. They seem to be funded really well for the NIL stuff.
Bryce Underwood coming in. It's
Bryce
big deal.
Underwood. They just beat Ohio State with an undermanned, undergunned team. Like
they have their number in that rivalry game. I just
circling Michigan a little more.
13-0. The way they're recruiting, the reality is, no matter how this season ends, they are the premier brand already in that conference. 1 year in, and it's really cool. They showed up at media days. They had a cocky swagger to them.
Mighty different.
They had a mighty different big inflatable duck in the river, and everybody said, boy, oh boy, you better back this up. And then they struggled with Idaho and Boise right out of the gate, and everybody made their jokes, and now you look up and they're 13-0, and they're the number 1 team in the country.
Well, even Duck fan was panicking at that point. What's funny is I was trying to find the post-game press conference, not the podium stuff or the interview on the field with Lanning. I was trying to find the post-game stuff, right? So I go to YouTube, I type in Dan Lanning post-game. It's not popping up for some reason. And I'm like, okay, Big Ten topic. Still not popping up. And I don't know what wasn't popping up, but every other press conference he's done popped up. And you know what was funny about that was while I was looking for that Lanning audio that we're going to play on the other side, I saw a screenshot of his Idaho postgame. Go look at the still image of his face. It's like, oh, my God.
What happened?
I can't believe that's how we play.
What the hell is going on here?
It's just fascinating to go back to the moment of how you felt after they narrowly beat Idaho.
Yes.
And seeing the post-game still image of his face after saying, we're mighty different, right? In the Big Ten Media Day, and where they ended up being at 13-0 and beating Penn State. Let's hear from Dan Lanning, both on the podium and in the postgame. We'll get to some Dan Lanning audio coming up next. Ducks win the Big Ten against Penn State, and we hear from Dan Lanning next on The Fan.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Josh Allen was pretty awesome yesterday. Wins should not be a quarterback stat. We may get to that at some point. Herbie came close to being knocked out for what felt like the year to coming back and almost winning the game against the Chiefs.
Also, why just settle for a field goal when you know how that game is going to end? I don't care if it's 4th and 15. I'm honestly going for it in that spot.
I'll give you a better take.
We all know how that game's going to end. We've all seen that movie.
Teams watched that game last night, and I think I've seen like 85 straight versions of that game from the Chiefs because they've won 15 straight one-score games. God. You should have let one of those guys just break away and score when it was like 3 minutes and change.
Oopsies. Oh, dang.
Darn.
Oh,
Now they're
because when you got down there close, then they took a knee. They weren't going to.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, as a Charger +4 better, I quite enjoyed that at least.
Know.
They covered the number, so thank you for that. But
we're getting some NFL stuff at some point today.
Maybe, hopefully.
What?
I don't know. There's a lot from college football. I just know you two.
Oh, well, especially him.
Yeah.
Snorting it up during the break. There's
a lot going on.
Lines out of CFB.
Woo! Feeling good.
Let's hear from Dan Lanning. Oregon wins the Big Ten title game against Penn State. Anything else from the game? Let me ask you this very quickly because I want to get to a lot of this audio. I shouldn't have done this. I made a grave mistake. One of my best friends is a diehard Duck.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to say he's a bigger Duck fan than you because I know how you are. But he lives and dies with only that. He does not care about any other sport, really, or any other team. Everything about the Ducks is him. I made the grave mistake of saying, if this is the defense against Georgia, Texas, you're not winning. And he goes, well, good thing we're not playing Georgia, Texas right now. And I said, well,
snap back at you immediately.
Probably a dumb thing to text a Duck fan at that point. Anything about that game make you nervous, or are you just taking this game by game saying, stuck in a different version of a game, I don't think that's who the Duck defense is going to be going forward.
I mean, yeah, the way they played defense was alarming, dude. They got absolutely shredded in that game on Saturday night. Penn State had 500 yards of offense on them. They ran the ball for 297.
297 on the ground is crazy.
Drew Aller torched him on the ground, which I think I had a comment at one point last week. Aller's not really a threat with his legs. He just killed him every time he ran the ball. They didn't have any answers really defensively outside of the turnovers and then making them settle for the opening field goals. So, yeah, that was incredibly alarming. One of the thoughts I did have with that, though, is how much time. They definitely had game plan for Penn State just in case. But I also wondered in the week leading up, they knew that they were going to be in the Big Ten title game. How much percentage of breakdown did they give to game planning for Ohio State as opposed to Penn State and who they thought they were going to play in that
Ohio
game?
State, yeah.
That was one of the thoughts that was rattling around in my mind. But the way they played defense was alarming. There's no doubt about it. They didn't have any pass rush. That's been a strength of the team all year. They had 10 sacks the week before.
Yeah.
Look, Washington's terrible, and their offensive line is atrocious. So you don't compare that to what happens against Penn State. But their defensive line has had an impact on almost every game that they played. That was not the case. But I also like looking at the positives, right? I mean, Tez Johnson, we talked about it when he was out, how much they desperately missed him. To have 11 catches, 181 yards, they had no answer for him.
He was wide open
every time. Every time. Kenyon Sadiq having 2 touchdown catches on his only 2 catches of the game. Oof. One of them hurdling a guy. It just shows you how much depth there is from that standpoint. They ran the football efficiently when they needed to. Gabriel, talk about using your legs, used his legs from time to time. So there were positives I thought to take away. And the main one just simply being their quarterback.
Been here just 2 seasons, but in those 2 seasons, especially this year, holy crap.
Yeah.
I've never seen a receiver in Oregon football history have the ability to separate and find so many open spots on the field. And he's a guy they're preparing for.
Yes, he's the guy they're circling to try and stop.
It's just unreal what he has done. And I think he is in the running to maybe be greatest receiver in Duck history, even if it's only 2 years.
Most explosive and game-changing. There's no doubt about that.
Here's Dan Lanning on the post-game podium. So this is on CBS. They had just won. He is on the podium now. He's got the Big Ten title trophy. Here's Dan Lanning.
The Ducks have been overlooked for far too long.
Nobody gave us a chance.
How were you able to bring this trophy back to the West Coast in year 1 of the Big Ten?
I didn't do anything. These players, man, these players put it on the line every single day. They work their asses off. They're so proud to be Oregon Ducks. They're so proud to represent every one of you. The fans, the players, our administration. We got it from top to bottom. It's unbelievable. We got great people here. And tonight they went and won the damn Big Ten.
11.
Coach, you're undefeated.
Jerry.
13-0. Number one in college football right now. Your journey is far from over. How far does this team go?
Hey, these guys can take it all the way if they continue to work, and I promise you this, these guys will do that. They will work. They will give every ounce of their effort to put us where we need to be.
Before I let you go, what would you like to say to all these fans out here?
Man, we love you. We are so grateful. We are so grateful. Every single person on this stage, every single kid wearing a jersey right now, every player in this organization is so grateful to represent you and what you stand for. We love the Ducks. Go Ducks.
God, I don't think you guys could be more in love with a human being if you tried. It's unbelievable.
Him popping in a zit as he was walking out of the tunnel again, too.
God bless him.
Yeah, look at
I had
that.
a fat zit on my chin this week, and I had to pop that sucker, and it's still showing. Here, you talk about Dillon Gabriel and how much you trust him, and it's not that he's the greatest quarterback in Oregon history, but it's just the ability in a big game. And Bo was great for you, but he came up short against Washington. Dillon Gabriel's 13-0. Here's Dan Lanning on coaching Dillon Gabriel.
This guy deserves every single thing that comes his way. I told him that earlier this week when he got Player of the Year in the Big Ten. I mean, if anybody can't watch that performance and recognize how special he is, and maybe the most special play to me was the 3rd and 1 when he won it in his hands to get that tough yard. This team believes in him. They're grateful every day that they get to step on the field with him. He's about connection and people first. But the poise that he shows in big games is unmeasured. I mean, I haven't been around players like Dillon. I'm really grateful that I get to share the field with him.
Sounded like they murdered a duck in the background there. Like they had to sacrifice one of them just to get that title.
That's what we do after every game.
Here is Lanning. He was asked by our guest coming up at 8 a.m., Bill Oram. And it's got to be tricky for guys like Oram because I'd want to ask the same question. These guys don't want to operate in the we're overlooking the next 3. But you kind of have to ask national championship-based kind of stuff.
I mean, you're in the playoff now. This isn't a hypothetical regular season week 4.
And I know Lanning doesn't want to talk about it. He's taking day by day. So here's Orm asking about envisioning a national championship.
I'll be honest, this is the furthest thing from my mind right now. Like, I'm worried about tomorrow. I'm worried about the next day, the next play. I think that's how you get there, right? If you start, putting the end goal inside. I don't think there's any secret what this team wants to accomplish. But you don't get there by just looking at it. Right, it takes work, right? So I'm thinking right now, how can we improve? How can we get better? And there's a lot that we can grow from that game in all phases. That's really where my focus is at. And I think when you focus on the process, the rest takes care of itself.
He also has to worry about the day by day because guess what?
But Oregon has by far been the most dominant team.
That's not the transfer portal sound. I don't know why that got replaced.
Oh, we lost our transfer portal sounder there?
That was on there on Friday. I don't know why the portal opens today.
It does.
So now he's got to recruit his own team. They've got to look at guys that are going to be jumping
Oregon has
from
by
the portal.
far been the most dominant team this year.
I didn't click that.
And it's interesting. We talk about parity in college football. We do
David Pollock. Why is David Pollock on my show
I don't
now?
know who.
Where did David Pollock come from?
On Friday, that was not David Pollock. That is really weird. So he's taking it day by day. And then he was also asked by Adam Rittenberg. They have something that's going on within their own program that they don't want to talk about all that much. They're calling themselves the Keystone Species.
Yes.
In the Big Ten. Here is Dan Lanning talking about that.
That's something kind of for us. Something we started the beginning of the season talking about, you get an opportunity to invade a new environment and, somewhere maybe you didn't belong and get the opportunity to take over that environment. We said this is the last step for us to become that. So I'm really proud of our guys buying into that thought and, building off of it. But, that's just, again, motivation's overrated. These guys have to go out there and execute. They did that tonight.
Had you not heard the Keystone Species thing yet?
I mean, I heard a little bit of that, but I didn't quite connect all the dots there. You got to love every little thing that he'll come up with.
Yeah, you do.
That you find a competitive edge or a motivational tactic, and he'll find it, man.
I guess I'll ask you this, and then we'll go. We still have Lanning audio, by the way, on the path to the national championship we can get to at some point. We'll talk with Bill Oram, who was in Indy live watching this game. I'm asking sincerely. Me and the listeners want to know. Are we completely nude with Steve Carell candles lit in your bedroom when the Ducks versus them video comes out from this?
Oh,
are we taking photos of mom and sending them down gently so she doesn't see in the photo what you're about to do to yourself?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Jurgens is out.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
Johnson's and Jurgens.
Candles are lit.
The amount of grown men, Duck fans, that are going to be feeling all kinds of conflicted about that Ducks versus them video probably today or tomorrow, is going to be insane.
You, your girl, and your Johnson.
It's going to be a fun time.
There may be no girl there.
They already had a little tease of it, too.
You and your Johnson, a way of life for over 50 years.
It's going to be great. It's going to be glorious.
We'll hear from Dan Lanning on his thoughts to the path to the national championship. Oregon may have gotten hosed in this one as the overall 1 seed. The team they beat seems to have gotten a viable path to at least the semifinal. We'll talk with Bill Oram, who was in Indy at 8 a.m. of the Oregonian. We have a lot more to get into. It's 7:30. We're back with more, but for Swag with the Sports Update.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by A&E Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge. Online at aneheatingandcooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. No one has stopped the Oregon Ducks this season. 45-37 was their victory over Penn State, earning Dan Lanning's team its first Big Ten title in its inaugural season. They get the number 1 overall seed in the very first 12-team college football playoff. They will get the winner of Tennessee versus Ohio State in the Rose Bowl on January 1st. The other 3 first-round playoff games go like this. December 20th, Friday night, Indiana is at Notre Dame. Then on Saturday the 21st, Clemson visits Texas. SMU is at Penn State. Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State are the other conference champions earning first-round byes. Seahawks get 193 yards from scrimmage from Zach Charbonnet and 2 touchdowns, and they beat the Cardinals 30-18. They now control their own destiny in the NFC West. Bengals and Cowboys set to go tonight in Big D. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Cincy, a 5.5-point favorite on the road. The 12th-ranked Oregon Ducks basketball team suffered its first loss of the season as UCLA's Dylan Andrews banked in a 3 with half a second left to give the Bruins a 73-71 victory. And the Major League hot stove got nuclear Sunday night. Mets reportedly have agreed to a record 15-year, $765 million contract that will bring outfielder Juan Soto from the Bronx to Queens after he played for the Yankees last season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Got a smart speaker? It's the Fan in your back on 1080 The Fan.
All right, Bill Oram coming up top of the hour. We're both playing hurt today, but we're here. It's too big of a show to miss. We've been waiting all year for one of these. The reaction of the College Football Playoff Committee. We'll have more on that coming up in the final hour of the show.
I can't. I keep seeing the replay of SMU on ESPN, and I'm like, why didn't you go for 2?
I know.
Why?
Go for the win right there.
And I don't know if you knew this. I don't know if anybody heard or knew this. Did you know, fun fact, the result from the ACC title game, what we learned, God is a Clemson Tiger fan.
I mean, you're damn right he is.
God opened doors for us this year.
That's right.
God had it in destiny.
Now, God also loves Texas. I feel like I've told that in country songs quite often.
Yes, he does.
So that's a God off right there.
Yeah.
Who? Texas, Clemson.
Who is God pulling for in this college football playoff?
I feel like it'd be Texas. God bless Texas. But Dabo Swinney also driving hard to the paint there with Jesus. So I don't know.
Penn State got mighty rewarded for losing the Big Ten title game.
Notre Dame.
Great point. How are we forgetting Notre Dame in this argument?
Yeah.
God, we'll have to see who he's rooting for in the playoffs, man. We'll have to see whose side he's on.
Dabo told me it's Clemson. So
I'm going to change the pace a little bit here because I'm going to throw you a curveball you probably didn't see coming. Where's your hatred level for the Kansas City Chiefs right now? How full is your cup of hate?
I don't hate them. I just
hate them.
You don't hate them?
I'm.
If they win another Super Bowl, how will you feel about them?
This does not make historically any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Let me just tell you right now. I got NFL Factoid Tuesday tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you know they did something yesterday that has not been done in 100 years?
Sounds about right.
1-score games. And by the way, I'm not kidding. I put this out on Blue Sky, and I really mean it. Any other team doinks that field goal for the division, they miss.
It's hitting right off the front of the goalpost and bouncing back.
Yep.
And everybody makes fun of them because they lost on a doink.
Yeah. I don't know what you do with this. They don't have – even Chief fan is going to say, well, look, guys, we weren't good offensively last year. We won the Super Bowl. And I told my wife, like, my team should have won the Super Bowl. They couldn't even beat that team.
No.
We're screwed.
No.
Because even when they don't look good and how many possessions they had – where he's just scrambling around a pocket and he's dinking and dunking and throwing into the ground for 5 yards.
Chargers were getting after him.
They were. They hit him all night.
They can't be beat.
No.
They're 12-1. And all the analytical people in the NFL, if you follow them, they're telling you this doesn't make sense.
No, it does not make sense.
And they win. And I'm legitimately asking.
Who does God love?
Yeah, it's Kansas City right now. There's no doubt about that.
Swifties.
I just don't understand. Look, I love Harbaugh. I think he's an awesome coach. He has done great things.
They couldn't run the football in the first half. Dobbins is killing them. Their
offense no-showed the first half.
I mean, and not having a key weapon out there hurts you a little bit. Nice of Quentin Johnson to show up after the last month that he's had basically not catching anything. So it's nice to see him have a big game.
Tight end though, that Smart kid.
Yeah, he had a decent game.
Smart. Yeah.
I just don't understand how many times do we need to see the movie? They had the ball 3rd and 16 on the Kansas City 24-yard line with 5 minutes to go, and the game was 16-14. You're down by 2.
Yeah.
I understand that a field goal gives you the lead. I get it. Is there any world that exists that you kicking a field goal and not scoring a touchdown there, that Kansas City's not going to come back the other way and score a touchdown? How many times do we have to watch the ending of a game to where on 3rd and 16 in that moment on the 24-yard line, they ran the ball? They had already on that drive committed or converted a 2nd and 18, I think. Herbert had a sack, I think, on the first play of the drive. They had a nice completion to Johnson right after that. They had already converted one long. I'm getting 10 yards and going for it on 4th down, honestly, because I could have told you in that moment. You text me, hey, Dirt, how's this game going to end? I'll tell you, here's how it's going to end. Kansas City's going to get into field goal range. You're going to use up all of your timeouts. They're going to have a key down that they're going to need to convert. Mahomes is going to run around and play backyard football, which you cannot defend. Yeah. And then Kelsey's going to stand there unguarded because everybody's going to follow Mahomes and where he's going. Yeah. He's going to dump it to him. They're going to pick up the first down. Yeah. Even after that, they doink the kick and it still went in. Mm-hmm. But I know how that game's going to end. Running the ball in that situation, I want to know what Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh were thinking because I knew how it was going to end.
Well, I think what they thought is our defense has been holding the offense in the second half.
That's fine. It doesn't matter. It's Patrick Mahomes with the game on the line, and you're not going to get a stop.
I know.
It doesn't happen.
And for all the analytical people that say this doesn't make sense, they win all these one-score games, they're breaking history with this. when they get to the playoffs and they're going to want to score a game, guess who's going to be experienced and ready? And how many other teams are.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part about all. Look, I don't blame actually Harbaugh for wanting the field goal. You take the lead when you can take the lead. What I think the NFL and Harbaugh need to learn at some point, you need to learn that this team knows how to kill clock.
Yeah.
They know how to take it all the way down. They know how to pick up the first down when they need. Whether it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 5, or 3rd and 10, they're going to convert. So instead of sitting on this, well, our defense has done a good job in the second half, look, this isn't sexy. NFL and any football coach hearing this is going to roll their eyes and say, I'm an idiot. At some point, there needs to be a mandate of, you guys need to fake tackle.
Just fall down.
And you need to make it look like you're chasing somebody. And maybe the Chiefs are so disciplined that they'll just run out of bounds because they know what you're doing. But you need to challenge it. Because I'm sorry, nobody is stopping this. And it can sound so stupid to everybody out there.
You'd much rather have your offense on the field, though, because you know how it's going to end when Mahomes is on the field.
I thought they were going to let him score and at least give Herbert 2+ minutes with a couple timeouts to go the length of the field and try to get a game-winning touchdown. I don't know what you do with this because this hasn't been done in 100 years. And yesterday I watched Josh Allen have 6 touchdowns and lose.
When was the last time a team three-peated?
Never. I don't believe it's happened.
It's never happened?
Never happened.
Not even like NFL championship days back in the...
probably the Packers.
Not since
maybe
the
like
in the
not since
Lombardi.
not in the Super Bowl
Not
era,
in the
though.
Super Bowl area.
Cowboys were the closest, right? 3 and 4.
We've
the
seen
Steelers.
3 and 4. I thought the
Steelers.
Patriots did 3 and 4.
Yeah,
one
no
time
team in
too.
the Super Bowl era since 66 has three-peated. The Packers did three-peat in the NFL championship at 65, 66,
I mean, if
67.
if they can do it again, when almost every metric points to them being good, but not that,
yeah,
it's going to break me as an NFL fan. It's going to break me.
Well, you say that, and then the NFL will get you every year.
I mean, we do this in the NBA, and we bitch and moan when it's the same team every year. It's like, oh, God, it's the Warriors again. This is what we're living through right now as an NFL fan.
Well, it's a repeat of the Patriots.
It is. And we just got done. The Patriots thing didn't end that long ago, man.
Right.
They won their last Super Bowl, 5 years ago?
The funny thing is, Kelsey's capable of having a big game in the playoffs. I won't doubt that. I think you've watched enough Kelsey to say, this is kind of the end of the road stuff.
Yeah.
He's not moving very well. He's not fast anymore. He knows how to find the zone pockets and sit down and wait. The funny thing is that going to be any different than when the Patriots went to multiple versions of Wes Welkers?
No, you just find the
Wes
next one.
Welker's gone now. Cool.
Yeah.
Here's Julian Edelman, another small white guy that'll just be open and have great hands.
Oh man, another tough loss. I'm slowly dying inside as an NFL fan, watching him continue to win these games in these ways. It doesn't make sense.
The game of the year was the game before it. It was Bills-Rams.
Bills-Rams was incredible, intense, high scoring. Let's get to a couple other notes from the NFL weekend. We'll dive back into college coming up at the top of the hour. Bill Oram will join us at 8 o'clock. We'll get back into the college football playoff, the bracket, more Dan Lanning audio, and all of that still to come. A question for you: are the Seahawks good? What do we make of that Bills-Rams game? Are we excited for the Simpsons? We'll get to a couple other NFL notes next on the Fam.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Home Services. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainshomservices.com.
Now from 42. Auburn hooked it and missed it, and Texas comes up empty.
How about Auburn coming up short in an SEC title game? Just not
Shocking.
the football team Auburn. It was the kicker for Texas. He missed multiple kicks. Texas loses in overtime against a backup quarterback in Georgia.
He did. At least he hit the one to send it to overtime, so I'll give him credit for that. Nice of Sark to kind of get him to laugh a little bit prior to that kick. Made the one in overtime as well, but missed a couple of big ones during regulation that ended up having a big impact on the outcome of the game.
Georgia beats Texas for the second time, winning the SEC crown. Who's stinking it up? Him. Auburn, the kicker for Texas, brought to you by Three Mountains Home Services. Make your home services delightful at the pros tackle the projects you need completed. Schedule an appointment online, Three Mountains Home Services. That's threemountainshomservices.com.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
I enjoyed this text. Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. I asked the question going to break, are the Seahawks good?
Yes.
The response is, for the Hawks, I thought they aren't good, but they might be bad. Now they're not bad, but they might be good. Kind of a way to sum it up. They went on the road to Arizona this weekend and got a win. I mean, yeah, that game never really felt close.
Remind me to never Sprague the line on the Cardinals ever again. I've had the take on Murray since he got drafted. I'm just not a believer in small dudes like that. I think he's a fraud of a franchise quarterback, and I think the last month or so of his play has kind of proven that. He's terrible.
Seahawks going to run away with the division? Do we feel like they got the Packers on Monday Night Football next week?
No, they play the Rams on Week 18.
And they have a Ram
and the Rams beat them the first time.
Are the Rams going to win in San Francisco on Thursday?
Well, they certainly could lose that game. The Niners have in years past beaten the Rams in moments where you think the Rams are clearly the better team, and somehow the Niners are favored in that. So,
well, the Bears suck, but they did what
the
they're.
Packers
they
don't,
dominated
or the
Chicago.
Seahawks don't have an easy road to finish.
They don't, but here's the thing. The Rams are not dead. But if you look at Vegas, and I don't want to base everything on Vegas, Vegas is saying right now what? Seahawks are a slight favorite. They're not a heavy favorite. It's minus 130 to plus 130.
Okay, that's not a big separation.
That's the difference between the Rams and the Seahawks right now, and as Swag mentioned, they play. I'm ready to say this because I was wrong on this game this weekend. The Seahawks are good. They are. If you go look at like advanced metrics, their defense from weeks 1 through, I want to say 7, versus what their defense has been from that point to this point, it's drastically different. Their defensive line has gotten healthy. We saw that with a thick 6 in New York, and we saw it yesterday against Kyler Murray. Their offensive line played pretty well. And oh, by the way, Kenneth Walker out didn't matter. Charbonnet had the game of his life. He had almost 100 yards in the first half of that thing. Geno has been playing really well as a Seahawk. I'm ready to say it. The Seahawks are a good team.
Metcalf starting to look like he's healthy now.
Yeah.
So they get him back healthy.
Smith and Jigba's been awesome.
Yep.
He's come on really strong in the last month or so.
He has. So, yes, I am ready to say it. I don't know if they win because the Rams are also good with Nakua and Kupp.
We're giving them the stamp. Good team.
Good team.
Good team.
And I think they can beat Green Bay in Seattle. But I have a fun fact for you.
Oh.
Did you know the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers are 28-3 against the NFL? And had they not played each other, they would not have lost a game against any other team in the NFL since October.
Yeah, because they've rotated losses, haven't they?
They've rotated losses.
Interesting.
So they got
that
they
division,
got the Packers and Vikings, but they're both at home for the Seahawks the next 2 weeks.
Well, we bitch and moan about the playoff bracket, right? Because it's year one, and here's Oregon getting a tough hand, and here's Penn State losing. And you know what's funny? The Vikings at 11-2 have to go to Tampa Bay right now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is where, if we're mad about it in college, we should be mad in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tampa's a fun story. They should not be hosting the Minnesota Vikings, who are 11-2.
No, it's something that needs a fixing. There's no doubt about that. P1 Harley, who was on the YouTube chat, diehard Falcons fan, is just chiming in saying, can we get Michael Penix already?
Yeah, Harley, I'm with you, man. I've been on that.
Sammy D tosses 5 tutties for the Vikings. Beats in the Kirk Cousins return game. Kirk Cousins throws a couple of picks. And
did you see the ovation he got?
I did not. Was it?
There wasn't one. Nobody cared.
Thanks, Kirk.
Nobody cared. It's the most vanilla run in NFL history.
We appreciate your time here.
8 interceptions and no touchdowns.
Smug is
How many
the
in a row have
Vikings
they lost?
Front office feeling about that. Don't have to say anything, but they're like, they were all smiles in that.
I mean, I know we've said this kind of jokingly.
Falcons have lost 4 straight.
4 in a row. Bucks, by the way, got their win this weekend, so they're now in first place. Yep. Sam Darnold is on a nice stretch here over the last month. He's tied for 3rd in the NFL with 28 touchdown passes. That is a career high for him. Mm-hmm. We all know how this is probably going to go, and I don't know if anybody gives them a legitimate shot to win the NFC. Watching what they do with that quarterback situation is going to be fascinating. Like, if they go on a run in the playoffs,
what
and
if
he's
they get to the
playing
NFC title game?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I get it that you just used it for. They're almost like the reverse Falcons, where they have this problem with a veteran and a rookie, but they didn't really mean to. They didn't think that this was going to happen. They thought J.J. McCarthy was going to start, or maybe we'll hand them the reins halfway through. Where Atlanta signed Cousins to the big deal, and they're like, oh, crap, Penix is still here. I guess we got to take him.
Yeah.
They're almost 2 teams dealing with the same problem, except in Minnesota, the veterans playing at a high level and getting the job done right now. And I'm fascinated to see how that works out the rest of the year.
Well, he's 27, and it actually doesn't.
He's not that old.
No, he's not.
No.
I don't know.
And he's not coming off an Achilles injury.
How much do you trust Minnesota? It's hard to say that because they're 11-2, so it sounds so dumb. But
I know.
I don't think they're going to get to the NFC title game.
It's like an Indiana thing in college football. It's like, all right, I know you're 11-1, but I didn't really think much of you coming into the year, so I don't know if I put you into that same category.
The other part of that, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of years ago you highlighted this, and you were right, and I thought it was so ridiculous in the moment. This feels Eagles-esque with Foles winning the Super Bowl and Wentz being the franchise guy.
Yeah, what do you do if he wins you a Super Bowl?
It broke him. And I'm not saying McCarthy needs to be traded or Darnold's going to do this again, but my God, he is unstoppable right now. He had 5 touchdowns.
5 tutties, man. 5 tutties.
They're 11-2.
11-2 for a blowout win at home against Atlanta.
And by the way, it just needs to be said. That's the greatest quarterback game I maybe have ever seen from a quarterback in what Josh Allen did.
What Josh Allen did yesterday. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He absolutely took over in the second half of that game.
Well, what are you doing with the quarterback sneak?
6 total touchdowns in that game, 342 passing yards, 82 rushing yards. What does that break down to? 410-ish, 420 total yards of offense and 6 touchdowns.
I think it was the first in NFL history where a player's done all that.
One-man machine.
Yeah.
Last note in the NFL for you after yesterday's outcome, not that we didn't think it was going to happen, but now it is official. The Jets have been eliminated from playoff contention. They blew another lead and lost in overtime to Miami.
I'll do my research to see if you're right on that. I don't know if I believe that.
That they've been mathematically eliminated?
Yeah, I'll have to go do my own research.
Okay, you go do your own research.
Yeah.
You check your own science on that. That is going to extend the longest drought in professional sports of the Core 4 in North America. The longest playoff drought was already residing with the Jets, and now it will continue to reside with the Jets.
One of the worst runs in 10 years for a veteran guy that everybody thought was going to win for them.
Things are going swimmingly for the New York football teams right now. Their fans are thrilled, and there are no paper bags in that city to be seen anywhere. We got a lot to get to in the final hour of the show. We're going to dive back into the playoffs, some more audio from Dan Lanning. Bill Oram was in Indianapolis on Saturday night. What did he make of what he saw in Oregon going 13-0 and the playoff bracket being released on Sunday? Columnist at the Oregonian, Bill Oram, is going to kick out the final hour next on 1080 The Fan.
You just exposed yourself as a horrible person.
You do your best. An Odyssey Sports Station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Laurelhurst Market Steakhouse and Butcher Shop. Make your holidays extra merry with a 28-day dry-aged rib roast from the best neighborhood butcher shop in town. Online at laurelhurstmarket.com. First on The Fan. To the victor go the spoils, or so they're supposed to. Oregon completes the only undefeated season with a 45-37 win over Penn State to get the Big Ten title, to get the number 1 overall seed in the first 12-team college football playoff. But many think their road tougher than lower seeds. They will get the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl on January 1st. In the quarterfinals, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State are your other conference champions that earned first-round byes after Clemson upset SMU, who did get the final at-large berth over Alabama. Your round 1 other matchups. Friday night, December 20th, Indiana goes 200 miles north to face Notre Dame. Saturday the 21st, Clemson visits Texas, and SMU is at Penn State. Seahawks have taken control of the NFC West with a thorough 30-18 beating of the Cardinals, led by Zach Charbonnet's 193 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs clinched the AFC West, getting another last-second field goal in a victory, this time 19-17 over the Chargers. Tonight, the Bengals and Cowboys square off in Big D. It's a 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Cincy a 5-point road favorite. And the Trailblazers came up short on the road in L.A. Anthony Davis, 30 points, 11 rebounds, guiding the Lakers to a 107-98 win. Portland's back home Friday hosting the Spurs. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigard from the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand at the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Got a smart speaker? It's The Fan in your office and every room of your home. Tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The problem most men have is they don't know how to talk to women.
This is Dirt and Sprague.
You know what my problem is? I am not interesting.
With Andy Dirt Johnson and Brendan Sprague.
What am I supposed to say? I went to magic camp. I'm an accomplished ventriloquist.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
Oh, I am a 7th degree imperial yo-yo master. Oh, do me, yo-yo master. I want you to do me because you're the yo-yo guy.
The Fan. In this wide world of sports, some stories can slip through the cracks.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules.
Pelican Brewing presents The Daily Ticker, where Dirt and Sprague hit the big stories you've heard about, and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague is poured by Pelican Brewing. Celebrate the season with a Northwest tradition, Bad Santa Cascadian Dark Ale. Pelican Brewing. Born at the beach.
Hey, today's Daily Ticker brought to you by Pelican Brewing's Bad Santa Cascadian Dark Ale. Warm up with bold flavor, get into the holiday spirit, enjoy by the fire, or maybe even under the mistletoe.
Ho, ho, ho.
Joining us now is Pelican born and raised columnist at the Oregonian, Bill Oram, one of our good buddies, at Bill Oram on Twitter. Go give him a follow. Bill, you were in Indianapolis this weekend. Did it feel mighty different watching Oregon win a Big Ten championship?
It was mighty colder than it was when I was there in July for the Big Ten Media Days. But no, I mean it felt like a milestone event for the Ducks, and I thought you could see that in the way Dan Lanning kind of was soaking it all in. He was on the field, wiping away tears, kind of from the weight of the moment. Winning a championship on their journey with the goal of another championship, I thought was really meaningful. That hasn't happened in Dan Lanning's tenure. I mean, they lost the Pac-12 championship last year, didn't get there 2 years ago. They've played a couple of meaningless bowl games in Dan Lanning's tenure. So this was sort of, I think, a realization of this kind of path that they are on with the goal of a national championship. And, I thought it was a cool moment for those players to kind of have the opportunity to celebrate. And, one of my, I guess I would say, pet peeves with Dan Lanning this year has been his sort of stubbornness about celebrating, right? Like, I mean, we see it internally, but when it comes time to talk about it, his attitude has been, we will celebrate. We can celebrate when the season's over. You don't finish your meal when it's half over. And my attitude has always been, it's the journey, not the destination. Hopefully it's the destination too, but you got to appreciate the journey along the way. And Dan has really refused to let that part of him be seen. And I thought it was I thought it was cool to see it on Saturday. And I wanted to walk up to him and say, "Gotcha, you're crying. That means that you're celebrating and you think this is cool." But I let him just have the moment.
I read your article. You have a couple out there at Oregon Live. The one that you had after, the post-game stuff and they win the Big Ten title. And basically to a certain degree, it's like, this is for a national championship. They're playing to win the first one in Oregon Duck history. I know Lanning won't outright say that, but we all kind of know that's where he leans when he answers questions. You asked him one of those in the postgame. After, though, seeing the path, Ohio State, Tennessee, and then potentially, a Texas, and then potentially a Georgia, is it really a disappointment for Oregon if they don't win a national championship, given the path that's kind of in front of them that they were given as a 1 seed? Meanwhile, the team they beat was given SMU and Boise State to the semifinal?
I do think it is, because you are the number 1 team in the country. You are the undisputed number 1 team in the country. You have you've won every game in front of you. You are 13-0. Yes, the path stinks, but you should still be favored in any one of those games. You still are the alpha of this college football landscape right now. So, yes, those are all tough games. It is a tough path. I worry about the accumulation of all 3 of those. But this is, as we said, for a national championship. And so, I think, you get to I think at any point, you will see, if the Ducks do lose any of those 3 in any of those 3 rounds, it will be the end of of an undefeated season. And their season would end with, at 13-1, 14-1, or 15-1. And that is painstakingly close. And this team has shown that it is good enough. It has passed the tests that it needs to pass to tell you that it is good enough to actually do it. So I do think that it is still championship or bust, even though I have my frustrations with the setup of the CFP. Do not get me wrong. That said, I don't know that I'm convinced that Ohio State is going to beat Tennessee. I'm not convinced that Georgia is going to beat Notre Dame. I think Texas is going to beat Arizona State. But there are people who are smarter than me who are picking the Sun Devils. So you are at a point in the season where all these teams are really good. And as much as we want to talk about, this being a true tournament for the first time, weird things happen in tournaments. That's what we love about March Madness, is that there are upsets. So I do think that there is potential for what we consider to be the absolute, in soccer, you'd call it the group of death, in terms of the path to the championship. I do think we kind of need to see what happens. I don't think that the committee did the Ducks any favors. And I of course think that, hey, you're the number 1 overall seed. This should set up at least somewhat favorably for you. But also the Ducks are trying to be a team that doesn't need any favors. And if they do it, which I recognize is a high bar, but still what I think the expectation needs to be, they will be the most deserving national champion in the history of the sport.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Duck fans make that point today.
And I think I think that's something to hang on to.
Yeah, there's never been a team maybe with a tougher path, and if you get through it and you survive doing it, that's a hell of a thing to hang your hat on. Bill Oram is our guest, columnist of the Oregonian. Great pieces up right now, OregonLive.com. At Bill Oram, you can go follow him on Blue Sky as well. I'm curious to ask you, Bill, because you were there in Indianapolis. We've been so used to Vegas kind of being the host recently for Pac-12 championship games, and that's a great venue that's, regional for the fan bases that go, and the atmosphere last year seemed incredible between the Washington and Oregon game. What was the atmosphere like? How many Oregon fans were there? It felt like it was overwhelming. Penn State fans? Just kind of paint that picture for me as somebody who watched on TV.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was an edge to the Penn State crowd, just easier, and regionally they have more people in that part of the world. But boy, I'll tell you, by the time it was over and the Oregon fans had all sort of made their way down to the section in front of the stage where the trophies were given out, it was a great environment, man. There were still thousands and thousands and thousands of Duck fans who were there cheering, celebrating, chanting, singing the fight song along with the marching band. It was really cool when it was all over and kind of during that celebration. It was not like, it didn't feel like an underwhelming amount of people. It was, there were Duck fans, kind of all over downtown Indianapolis, as we've seen sort of on some of these other road trips this year. Indianapolis is not Vegas. It's a lot harder for people to hide or disappear. So if people are out, you're going to see them. And I saw Duck fans everywhere. I did end up at a Penn State themed late night dining establishment on Friday, and was surrounded by the Penn State crowd. But for the most part, I thought Oregon fans turned out really well. I mean, I will say I got on that one direct flight they added to Indianapolis on Friday morning because Delta added some travel hijinks to my day, and I was surprised that flight wasn't full. So I think that there was probably a little bit less of a crowd than there would have been if it was regional. And I will say if I'm the Big Ten, I do not understand continuing to have the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis through 2027. I understand there's a great relationship there. Indianapolis is a great convention town that can accommodate a lot of people, but you are now a coast-to-coast conference that made this big swing to go get 4 schools from the West Coast. I don't know why you wouldn't lean into that and have the Big Ten championship game at SoFi or use Vegas. To me it seems like a miss to during this initial wave of interest in having West Coast schools continue to do everything in Indianapolis. Yeah. If I was the commissioner of the Big Ten for a day, that would change.
Bill, a lot of people speculated what would happen if Oregon won, being the 1 seed overall, but how the bracket would unfold. I'm curious your thoughts, not that you're surprised by what Oregon has in front of them, but just how the committee maybe didn't take into consideration that when you're talking about the non-conference champion teams, the Penn States, the SMUs, the Tennessees, the Ohio States, how they don't maybe change that the thinking in the formula to who plays who. Like Penn State losing the Big Ten title game gets SMU and then Boise State. I don't know how logically you sit in a room and say Oregon gets Tennessee, Ohio State, and then potentially a Texas or even an ASU. I don't know how you don't conclude that that's kind of unfair. What were your overall thoughts of the committee in year one with the bracket and how they maybe didn't take into consideration rewarding a team like Oregon who went 13-0?
Well, I think the thing that they failed to understand or failed to anticipate was how much crowning or giving those buys to conference champions was going to skew and sort of scramble the rest of the bracket. And in a year when the Big 12 champion is an actual 12-1 national championship contender, top 5 team, and same in the ACC. Maybe that makes sense, but what they were trying to avoid, I think, we've seen such a things being so heavily weighted toward the SEC. I think they were trying to avoid that. But what you ended up doing in this year is actually giving a great path for a lot of SEC teams, and they tried to seed it like a bracket, but then once they got through the seeding, they tried to turn it into a ranking, and that doesn't work. There's a reason when you have an NCAA tournament bracket, you can look at it and say, hey, the team that's number 10 in this bracket is better than the team that I'd say is even number 6 or number 7. It's because a seeding is not necessarily reflective of a ranking. You're trying to create good games in the middle and then maybe a little bit lighter on the edges so that the team that is number 1 does have not a clearer path, but doesn't have you don't set it up so that number 1 is going to potentially lose in the first round unless you put a juggernaut like Maryland, Baltimore County in there. So it's just not supposed to be that way. And I think that they got in their own way of what a bracket looks like versus what a ranking looks like. And I do think that if they're going to stick with this system, they're going to do away with the conference champions getting the buys, or maybe you reseed after the first round games. If they were to reseed after the first round games, then Oregon would play the number 8 team of the remaining field. That would make a lot more sense than them playing the number 8 potentially now, which would be Ohio State. If you reseed, the number 8 could be SMU, or even Penn State or something like that. But it wouldn't be a team that was number 2 or number 3 basically the entire year in all the rankings.
Yeah, I see some Duck fans too bring up a good point that they're going to at least have a little runway here to buy those tickets for the Rose Bowl, where that should be a great home crowd for them. West Coast venue, traditional venue that who doesn't love going to, L.A. for New Year's Day, and that the winner of the Ohio State-Tennessee game is only going to have about 10 days to figure out if we're going to go and do we want to go. How much is Bill Oram looking forward to spending New Year's Day in some sunshine in California?
Always looking forward to it. Seeing my friends back in LA. As folks know, I lived there for 10 years. So, Los Angeles is near and dear to my heart. I think that everyone who can should try to get out of the gray and the rain for at least a few days in the winter, just to help bridge the gap to spring here in Portland. So I always appreciate those opportunities. And I just to the point about, obviously, yes, there's a chance for fans to buy tickets, get excited for this game. But I do think that there is a huge advantage for the Ducks going into the Rose Bowl over the opponent that they end up having. You can obviously make the case that there's a better chance for sort of a hangover from being off for that long. But I think it's more advantageous to have these 3 weeks to get healthy, to game plan. You're going to be playing one of two teams. They're going to have 3 weeks to develop really sophisticated scouts on both potential opponents. If you're Ohio State, you're locked in on Tennessee until you get to December 22nd, and then it's a pivot to Oregon. And same if it's Tennessee who wins that game. And like I said, I'm not convinced Ohio State wins that game. Ohio State is kind of in disarray right now, and even to the fact that on the selection show yesterday that Kirk Herbstreit had to make the point that Ohio State would have been better off going on the road because fans there will be too busy booing Ryan Day. So I do think that, Ohio State might just be a team that gets in its own way, and then you see Tennessee at the Rose Bowl. And not to say that is a more favorable matchup for the Ducks. It isn't. That is a team that is also super stacked. But I just think the Ducks have the built-in advantage here of these 3 weeks off. I don't know that bye is a better advantage than playing potentially, SMU and Boise State, to your point, but it is an advantage that I think that they should take full advantage of, and I think does help them for the gauntlet that awaits.
Yeah, great stuff. Bill Oram, go check out his work at OregonLive.com. You can read him in the Oregonian. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Oram. Go catch him on Blue Sky as well, the columnist for the Oregonian and a good friend here of the program. Bill, thanks for the time this morning, man. Glad you made it back from Indy, and we'll do this again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, fellas.
There you go. Bill Oram of the Oregonian talking about the pathway for the Ducks. What does Dan Lanning make of the pathway for the Oregon Ducks? We can talk a little bit about that. Coming up next, is it harder? Did they get punished for getting the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff? Today's Daily Ticker brought to you by Pelican Brewing Company. This year, give Santa what he wants. Forget the milk, Paris cookies with Northwest's favorite festive beer. Bad Santa Cascadian Dark Ale. The playoff bracket release, and Oregon gets screwed next on The Fan.
It's time for a sports injury report. The injuries and rehab that impact the success of sports teams. Brought to you by Rock Orthopedic.
He did get to have an MRI this morning. We should get the results here in the next few hours. We just had a team meeting. He was there for the team meeting. We should be finding something out here soon.
That is Kirby Smart talking about his starting quarterback who went down at halftime of the SEC title game. Gunnar Stockton came in, gave him a nice little boost in the second half. Georgia won despite the fact that Beck did not play outside of the final handoff of the game.
A weird SEC title game. The backups of both teams might have been better options for their offenses. Look, I still think Beck's leadership, he is respected in that locker room and by Kirby. It matters, but also it felt like their offense got better without him. So if he's out for their first playoff game, he gets 2 weeks to rest. It may not matter all that much.
Yep. Sports Injury Report presented by Rock Orthopedic, board-certified specialists who diagnose and treat the widest range of orthopedic cases with care and expertise. To schedule an appointment with Dr. Shane Hanslick, visit rocpdx.com.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Well, we got bowl game announcements this weekend. Everybody's focused on the playoff. Don't forget about the ReliaQuest Bowl. Don't forget about the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
It's great.
All those are happening.
We also got the announcement of the announcers for the playoff games.
Oh, I didn't see all those.
I'll look it up and give you the list here in just a second.
There's been a little confusion on where the next sites would be. There's all sorts of weird reporting out over the weekend of where games would be. Would the top seed get to pick? Where the semifinal game would take place? They have not done a very good job explaining how all this is going to work, which I think just further highlights how ridiculous some of the things in this system are.
So the Indiana-Notre Dame game is going to be on ABC, ESPN. That's going to be McDonough and McElroy.
Okay.
And then SMU at Penn State's going to be on TNT or Max.
Yeah, remember they traded some of the games to TNT and Max.
That's going to be Mark Jones, Roddy Jones, and Quint Kessenich.
Okay, I think all the broadcast crews are still ESPN crews, but they're just going to air on Max channels.
And then Clemson at Texas on TNT's Pash and Dvorak.
Okay.
And then Tennessee at Ohio State on ABC is going to be Fowler Herbstreit.
That'll get the prime crew, yeah.
The Fiesta Bowl, Boise State, and the winner of Penn State SMU will be Bob Wischusen and Louis Riddick. The ASU Peach Bowl with Texas or Clemson is going to be Tessitore and Palmer.
I like that crew.
Rose Bowl with Oregon and the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee, Fowler Herbstreit.
Yeah, he always calls the Rose Bowl.
And then the Sugar Bowl with Georgia and the winner of Notre Dame, Indiana is going to be McDonough, McElroy, and then after that, we don't know.
Okay, and then from then on out,
title game is going to be Fowler Herbstreit.
Yeah, title game, we know who they'll be. We've been talking about the pathway for Oregon, and if you're not a Duck fan, you probably hear it and say, "Oh God, stop complaining." I don't think it takes a Duck fan to look at the system and say this is a little ridiculous, and they're going to change it, and I guarantee you they will when the thing is up. This playoff format has been agreed to for 2 years. It will get ripped up and re-agreed to, and it will not look like this in 2 years. But Dan Lanning was asked on the selection show. He showed up on ESPN. They got back from Indy at 4 o'clock in the morning on what would have been Sunday morning, and turns around. The reveal comes at 9 a.m. The guy's got like 2 hours of sleep. You could tell. He just looks exhausted.
What did you think of all the teams? They showed like Boise State. They showed Clemson had a pizza party.
So they did a thing this year. It was interesting that there was a report out there that teams didn't want to have full-on part. Like Clemson knew that they were in because they won their conference title.
Yeah.
SMU didn't want any cameras in the room because they all had the still image of what the
Mike
Florida
Norvell.
State
Yeah.
Mike Norvell reaction to getting left out, and nobody wanted that viral moment.
Notre Dame's looked depressing.
Yes,
They're on like all these white jumpsuits just in the middle of the facility, sitting down with nothing. What are we doing?
What are we doing? Come on.
Get some pizza.
Celebrate.
Clemson at least did it right. Pizza party.
Notre Dame knew that they were in the playoff.
They came straight from Mass that morning.
That is true. Bigger
Touché.
things, bigger fish to
Think about
fry. Lanning was asked about the path that they have to win a national championship.
What an opportunity, right? I mean, look, in our world, we always talk about red light, green light. Focus on the things you can control, right? That's what we're going to focus on. And, winning a national championship isn't supposed to be easy. You can ask Coach Saban. It's not supposed to be easy. So if our path's a little bit tougher, kudos to us if we go through it and take care of business.
So that's his approach. Red light, green light.
I thought Saban did both things. I thought he balanced fighting for Alabama because he's the Alabama guy. I thought he also kind of defended SMU getting in because they were in their conference championship game.
Yeah, you got to make sure those games still matter. You cannot punish them.
But if Coach Nick Saban was still a thing, he would have bitched and moaned till the cows came home that they got snubbed.
Great.
And if he was given the 1 seed with this path,
he would have cried about how
bitched
ridiculous
and
it was.
moaned how ridiculous it was. Now, look, there is an element of this. I actually think Lanning's right. It's not going to be easy to win a title regardless. Now, is there an easier path? Yes, Penn State's path on paper looks the easiest. They're going to be 7.5-point favorites against SMU. They're going to be double-digit favorites against Boise State.
Yes, they will.
But and look, this may be a mistake to say, and you can hold this for the old takes exposed. Ohio State feels untrustworthy, as talented as they are.
I was going to say, I'm surprised. All these lines are a touchdown or more in the first round. Do we think, given this college football season, it's going to be all chalk?
Yeah,
I think Texas is going to blow out Clemson. That's the one I absolutely agree with. Everything else may be up in the air. We'll see what SMU does at Penn State. I don't trust Ohio State. I don't know if I trust Nico enough with Tennessee to say they can beat Oregon at the Rose Bowl, but they certainly can. But I think Oregon's going to be favored in both those games. Texas, we'll see if they get past ASU and Clemson. If they do, then okay, we'll talk about that game. But what if ASU beats Texas?
Yeah.
Then does Duck fan think this is the hardest path ever?
Right.
I think you're going to feel good about your chances against ASU, even though Scattaboo is an amazing dude and Dillingham's had a great year. So I think today it's fair to say Oregon got somewhat railroaded, especially considered to non-conference champions out there. But let's see it play out a little bit. Let's see what round one shows us. Maybe we'll feel different about this in 2 weeks.
How great would Dillingham versus Lanning and the
them knocking off Texas would be phenomenal.
Great with
Texas losing to Scattaboo and Arizona State.
It'd be hilarious.
The champion of the conference that they left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's symbolism there. And I know Arizona State's new, but
trying to stick it to the Ducks who didn't give him the time.
Yes,
of day.
he didn't recruit him. Yeah.
Dillingham was there for 1 year, and he has a good relationship with Lanning. Like all of that is right there. It could happen, and so if it does, I don't know if we'll scream as much. I still think there's things they should change. We had a listener DM us, somebody on Twitter had said if they just went by the actual seeding or the ranking, not the seeding, Oregon would be the one. They would take the winner of 8-9, which would be Indiana, Boise State.
Yeah.
Penn State's 4. They'd take on the winner of Notre Dame, Clemson. Georgia would take on the winner of Ohio State, Arizona State. And Texas would take the winner of Tennessee, SMU. And that, to me, is an accurate way of how it should have been done. But it's not. And this is your path. This is your chance to win your first national championship ever. I don't know if I go quite as far as Oram and saying it's a disappointing season if you don't, given how hard it could be.
Yeah.
But you have an opportunity to continue to be the best team in college football, and you have been all year.
First, what would it be? They would have to win 3 playoff games, right?
Yeah.
So they'd be 16-0 if they did it. Nobody's ever done that, right? Because the past high is 15. You used to have the conference championship and then a 4-team playoff. Yeah, it is interesting because I do think there is a big advantage where, at least for them, what I will say is that the first-round matchup that feeds into their game is unquestionably the most competitive in my mind. Like, it would have been one thing if Tennessee or Ohio State had been paired up with now it's not guaranteed that they win, but let's say it's Ohio State, Indiana again, a game that we just saw a couple of weeks ago.
You think it's tougher than getting Texas?
No, I'm just saying that's an advantage for Oregon that neither of those teams are going to have a cakewalk so whoever wins between Tennessee and Ohio State, that's going to be a tough, physical, cold weather,
right?
4-quarter game where you're going to be sitting at home, resting, getting healthier, and they're going to be fighting it out, and then they're going to get 10 days to prepare for you. And your fans have already bought up tickets and all that stuff. So there is that at least small advantage that exists. And then to Swag's point, we've had a lot of listeners bring that up every time that I've complained about it being a tough path of, we had nothing but chaos this year in the sport. Mm-hmm. And it very well may happen again. And we're in the postseason tournament. You could get Georgia losing, you get Penn State losing to SMU, Clemson beating Texas. Who the hell knows what's going to... I didn't think Georgia Tech was going to damn near beat Georgia in Athens a couple of weeks ago.
Should have.
And they should have. They came that close. So it's been a weird year.
Do we need to... Because they need to take the approach that the basketball selection committee uses. Figure out which teams are automatic berths in, and then you debate over the remaining at-large pool. Do we need to get away with the actual rankings every week? Because if you go, but this is what Saban said, 3 weeks ago when SMU started moving up, they backed themselves into this corner.
Right.
And then Alabama blowing it against Oklahoma. But once you ranked somebody ahead of somebody else and you said they shouldn't be that sort of thing, do we just get away with the rankings? You can put out whatever metrics or stuff, like basketball has the net ratings to give you an idea, but there's no weekly release.
I think what you're doing is the right thing. I actually just agree. I completely disagree in the opposite way. I think they do need to evaluate this. I think that's a very fair point. I don't want the ranking to go away. What I want, and I will just be firm on this, I want to know where you're at preseason. If we're going to do these AP polls where you give me the first opening kickoff game and it's LSU USC and the top 25 AP poll comes out and has 16 versus 9, if we're doing that for TV purposes only, then I think the committee needs to be showing us who do you think is top 25 going into the year. Did SMU, were they on the top 25 list?
Yeah, were they on that list? Was Indiana on that list?
Indiana certainly wasn't.
Yeah.
And what happens is when these Indiana SMUs of the world win and play better than we think, we're ready at the possible quickest moment to say fraudulent. Well, I want to know where the committee is, because if they would have had Alabama top 6, boy, having 3 losses and 1 to Oklahoma certainly does not make a good argument that they should be in the playoff here. So I think Swag's right. They need to evaluate how they do this. I just think the other side. I want the committee rankings week 1. If you want to wait for the first 0 week to happen, week 1 to happen, okay. But give me the rankings right away. Don't do this late November, mid-November crap. I need to know what they're thinking as the season's happening so they don't just piggyback off the AP.
Yeah.
And then, oh, look, there's 7 SEC teams in the top 13.
The funny thing about all this is, like, I see where both you guys are coming from on that. They're never going to get rid of it. You know why?
Because of this.
Well, because of this and how much
ESPN makes too much
how
money
much money are they making off of that show every Tuesday?
I know.
Because millions of people, not millions, but a lot of people tune in to watch it and
Wouldn't
debate
you
it.
watch it at the beginning of the year, though?
I totally would. They just make more money. But I see what Swag's saying of like just come with your, have your ratings and all that. And
you have the AP poll and the coaches poll for college basketball, so there's still a ranking. You can put a number next to a team to
you have a
highlight
general
matchup.
idea who's going to be in.
There's the net rating, which is
how do
a
you do
metric
that?
the NCAA uses.
I don't think
that
you can do
ties
it
in
for football.
strength of schedule, strength of record, who you beat.
We already
who
have
you lost.
But then you go into,
Yeah.
but then when it's the selection committee time, they go into a room. Here's all your automatic qualifiers. Now you determine the rest of the at-large berth, and then you reveal a bracket.
The tough thing with that, though, is like we have 8 conference games in one conference. We got 9 in others.
I know.
And like what we end up doing is we argue with people who cover the sport because they tend to lean star ranking, recruiting ranking.
Yeah.
And what they do is our entire life, the SEC's been dominant. So SEC is the best conference. Is it? We'll see. If they don't win the national championship, what's the narrative going to be next year?
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think what we do is we're using eyeball test. And I don't know how you can, I think the difficult thing is using what he is mentioning in basketball. I don't know how you do that in football because it's never a level playing field. Ole Miss played nobody in non-conference.
Nobody.
And then lost to Kentucky.
They did.
But I'm led to believe that they should be in this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
I know. It's not a perfect world. There's no right answers here. I do think that they will change the format. There's no question about that in the next 2 years. They will, by the way, also expand the playoffs. So we'll get that as well. I had a thought this weekend. I'm curious if you guys had a similar takeaway. We'll get to a couple of bowl game announcements for local teams. Dive into that coming up next. First, your Swag with Sports Center.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club. Good or bad weather, the golf course is always the driest around. Download the Langdon Farms app today. Get all the latest news and specials. First on the Fan, indeed, the Oregon Ducks are the number 1 overall seed in the first 12-team college football playoff. After winning a Big Ten title 45-37 over Penn State, they will face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl on January 1st. Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State are your other conference champions that earned first-round byes. Clemson, with the upset of SMU, SMU still got the final at-large spot over Bama. Round 1 opens up Friday, December 20th with Indiana at Notre Dame. Then on Saturday the 21st, Clemson visits Texas. SMU is at Penn State. Seahawks have grabbed control of the NFC West with a thorough 30-18 beating of the Cardinals. The Chargers lost to the Chiefs on a last-second field goal. That allowed Kansas City to clinch the AFC West. Bengals and Cowboys tonight in Big D. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KUTU Channel 2. Cincy a 5-point favorite on the road. And the 12th-ranked Oregon Ducks basketball team suffering its first loss of the season. UCLA's Dylan Andrews banking in a 3 in the final second, delivering the Bruins a 73-71 victory. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigard from the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand at the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The inside story on the Blazers. This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
We'll get to some bowl games here in a moment, something we'll talk about through the rest of the week as well. I was sitting around this weekend watching conference championship games. It started on Friday, Boise hosting UNLV.
Dud of a game.
That was a dud of a game. Yeah, the Big 12 title game was a bit of a dud, too.
How miserable did the Fox guys look on that set, too?
Just absolutely miserable.
Okay, it was 4 degrees.
Just freezing cold all the way in Boise. It was funny that was the only Fox broadcast that they had of the entire weekend. I don't know if you guys had this takeaway. There were obviously games with big implications. I actually had a takeaway Oregon State related this weekend of watching the Boise UNLV game. Of like, this is what you sell, is having a game like this with a chance to go to the playoff. You win a conference, you can get an automatic bid. Like, that's the selling point for the new landscape that you're in, and I don't know how long it takes Oregon State to get to that spot. But it was the first time that I have ever watched my team play a big game that, like, I've acknowledged in the past that I can go Michael Irvin's, all fours doggy style watching a game when you're living and dying with every play and the outcome, and oh my, it's a 4th down, are they going to pick it up? Like, everything that goes into it. I had moments watching that Penn State game where obviously you want your team to win. You're rooting for your team to win. There were parts of it that felt like an exhibition. And I had the same takeaway from the SEC title game where I knew in the ACC game Clemson winning was going to be a major shakeup because Clemson would go. Then it becomes the whole debate of does SMU stay? The Big 12, you had the winner gets in. They knew that. The loser's going to be out. Same thing with the Mountain West Championship game.
Yeah.
But there were parts of me watching the SEC and Big Ten title game that I'm a pro-expansionist guy. I still am, despite what I'm saying right now. But I'm at least acknowledging that's been the argument that some anti-expansion people have said is you're going to lessen the importance of some of the games. And I kind of felt that during the Big Ten and the SEC title game. They were both great games. They were entertaining, very different, defensive, low-scoring overtime, high-scoring shootout. But the idea that both teams are still going to the playoff, it felt, I don't know, it was kind of weird for me watching them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I didn't have the takeaway at all.
Didn't have that at all?
I was fascinated to see if Oregon was going to finish an undefeated season. I was fascinated to see if Oregon was going to win the conference in year one, if Penn State could ever win a big game. The other side, Texas clearly has a Georgia problem. Georgia doesn't have great quarterback play. Doesn't matter. My actually big takeaway is Georgia had a quarterback, they'd be the favorite to win it. They would be I would pick them to win it.
Yeah, if they had a more functional offense.
Now, I tend not to think they're going to lose to a Notre Dame if Notre Dame wins, but maybe that is up in the air with the quarterback situation. I hear what you're saying. Like
it's just
teams,
unique. Like Texas and Penn State could play each other in the national championship
yes.
game.
Yeah, that very well could happen. That's no different than the NCAA tournament.
No.
We get that all the time. Like Duke played Louisville yesterday. That was a great game with Cooper Flagg. Maybe those teams face off in the Final Four. I don't know, but I'm surprised to hear you say that, given everything that was in front of Oregon and what was looming in year one in that conference. To me, it's not about, oh, well, this is a foregone conclusion they're in. We knew that. I don't think those games either. Okay, so like I didn't watch those games and I didn't have that feel. But I also didn't watch those games and thought those teams played like that.
No, I'm not arguing that they did at all. They both seem invested in winning.
That's why I'm surprised you had that feeling.
This is the most important fandom in my life, and I live and die with results.
Yep.
And it's an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just the first time that I can remember watching my team play in a game like that where I obviously did not want to lose. I'm not saying I was rooting for my team to lose or was okay with them losing. I didn't have the feeling watching it where I was living and dying with every play. And I don't maybe I'm just alone in that feeling in my fandom. I'm not saying the games looked like the teams didn't care. They were both awesome games.
Texas clearly
incredibly
wants
entertaining.
To beat Georgia.
I think a more comparable argument would be this is like if Duke and North Carolina played in the ACC tournament title game, where you know that they're both going to the NCAA tournament. The winner just maybe dictates one gets a 1 seed or the other gets a 2 seed.
That's a tough comp because I think that game's
Kirk, it's a rivalry. I get it, but I think
more.
that's a more applicable thing. It's interesting for me coming from a year where they played Washington in the Pac-12 title game last year, and that was everything.
But if that was the same scenario, those two teams squared off in the Big Ten title game, had they played once
there's
already,
a rivalry aspect of it there, too, that would tie into it. There's not a rivalry built in. You don't want to lose to your rival in a big game.
I would argue your rival, aside from Washington, is that conference.
Yeah.
They all questioned if you were physically ready, if you could actually do it. And people didn't think they could. And I know the playoff is looming, But I also don't think you'd want to come in on a Monday and talk about how your team lost to Penn State.
No.
Penn State can't beat good teams.
Not at all.
And so it's like, yeah, you'd play a playoff game, and that would be the ultimate rebuttal, but it would still be a lot of people being like, you guys couldn't beat Penn State. And I'm going to be led to believe that you're going to beat this team, and that team. So I hear what you're saying. What you're saying makes sense. But I didn't watch that game with that feeling, and I don't think those teams played that game with that feeling. The weird thing is you get the bye, and everybody's like, well, you get the time off. Do you want it? Well, I still think you do because you want rest and you want to get healthy. You end up playing just as many games.
You do.
Those other teams didn't have to play this weekend. You did.
Yeah, a lot of teams didn't have to play. Yeah, Penn State would have one more because they had to play in a conference championship game,
Penn
but a lot of
State,
teams sat at home this weekend, so it
Yes.
ends up being 16 games as well. The total number ends up being the same. I'm curious if any fans had the same feeling as I did. Obviously, exciting game, great. Oregon wins, thrilling, shootout, way more high scoring than I thought it was going to be going in. But I don't know, it was a little weird, little off for me as a fan. You can text in Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. We'll get to some bowl game announcements. The portal is officially open as of today. Wrap it up next on a Monday on The Fan.
It's time for To the House, the scoring plays that make football special. Brought to you by Smartline Home Design. Online at smartlinehomedesign.com.
Levitt in the shotgun. He's got Scatteraboo to his left. Three-step drop. Fires Scatteraboo in the flat to the 35, the 30. He's up the sideline and he's gone. 10-5, and it's a 33-yard touchdown for Cam Scatteraboo.
ESPN Radio on the call. Arizona State just took Iowa State back behind the woodshed and beat up on them 45-19 behind Cam Scatteraboo, who just ran all over the Cyclones.
What a year two for Dilly. Picked dead last in that conference. They win the conference championship without a doubt. And he's one of the stories of college football. I don't know how he doesn't end up in New York. Have a 5-person panel be in New York. Cam Scatteraboo should be in New York.
He absolutely should. To the House brought to you by Smartline Home Design. The meticulous attention to detail translates into streamlined construction processes, saving valuable time and resources for their home building or construction partners. Bringing your vision to life. Game plans for success. Find them online at smartlinehomedesign.com.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Yeah, we get a Simpsons Monday Night Football broadcast tonight.
It's the only way I'm watching the game.
I mean, the Cowboys shouldn't be on national television, and it's funny that people wanted this game, what do they call it, kicked out or...
flexed.
Flexed out,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do it because of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
They had spent all this time building up the graphics for The Simpsons to do a Cowboy theme that they couldn't flex this thing out tonight. So we get Cowboys
I'm usually
and
not
Bengals.
an alternate broadcast. I'm very, in shocking
Traditional.
development, very
Shocking.
traditional.
Yeah.
You like missionary.
This one I'm going to check out.
This one you will. This will do it
Well,
for you?
considering The Simpsons came about, when it was either late high school or college when that first, so it's been inbred.
Late 80s.
Yeah. But I'm curious to see what they do with this one.
Well, I'm spraying the line on the Bengals tonight, and I don't feel confident anyway
Plus,
about
I got
that.
the over.
Yeah,
on
you guys
this.
both have a Sprague in the line? Take it
Yeah, I
on
need
tonight.
this for a winning week.
I do too. My kids have dove headfirst into The Simpsons on Disney Plus, and
okay.
I gave that to my oldest, who's 12.
Yeah.
She has ran with it in a way I was not expecting. When she's watching something or doing arts and crafts or something in the living room, it's always on.
Constantly on.
She can name every character. Like, she already knows more about The Simpsons than I ever did. My mom was hot and cold on The Simpsons. My mom was weird in a lot of ways. I could do certain things and watch certain things, and then I couldn't do certain things and watch those same things. Like, I could watch South Park, and she would kind of get high and watch it with me. And then, like, she wasn't high. You can't watch it. Simpsons was the same thing. It was, like, not allowed, and then some weeks it was.
It was occasionally allowed.
It was a weird thing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to watch it I don't like the way they do the animation with these Simpsons.
With the games or with the new show?
No, with the game. It's going to be like a 3D modeled version of The Simpsons, and I like it with the lines and the old school drawing.
Now, is it only on Disney Plus? Is it on how do I watch?
That I don't know.
Don't know.
I think it's ESPN Plus,
ESPN Plus, Disney Plus kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I'll
it's
check
Disney
it out.
Plus, ESPN Plus.
I mean, I have no interest in watching the Cowboys again this year, so that'll be the only reason I kind of watch this game, just to see what it looks like
They
tonight.
have the highest
It'll be
rated
fun.
game of the year, Thanksgiving.
I know. We got a problem, man. Yeah. We got a problem. Hey, the Cougs are going to San Diego. They get to go to Holiday
Good for
Bowl.
them.
Taking on
Go
Fran
to the
Brown.
Holiday Bowl.
Will Fran Brown be washed after this game? Will he bathe?
How about LeBron being traded rumors?
Oh, they're going to deal him.
Some intel.
Package with Bronny, or does Bronny stay?
Well, I mean, I love that it's nobody. Rob Pelinka's just had a crappy team, but it's everybody else.
Oh, that'll do it for us, folks. Thanks, everybody, for listening today. Go check the podcast, 1080thefan.com, at Dirt and Sprague, and at 1080thefan. Like the video on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. We love you all. Thanks for being a part of our Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Call us next. Listening to 1080 The Fan.